Chapter 2944. Yimo's voice woke everyone up. As expected, Yimo's aura was faintly discernible. Everyone was shocked. There was no aura just now, but now there was an aura again. The Demon King's words completely solved everyone's doubts. The Phoenix Clan's Nirvana technique is really powerful. I wonder where he got it. The Demon King's eyes were very sharp. Although Emperor Enai was also an emperor, his strength and experience were far inferior to Yi Mo Nirvana. Everyone finally knew that Yi Shiwen was undergoing Nirvana. Everyone present on the scene was an expert, even if they couldn't see what Yi Shiwen was doing, but their knowledge was not lacking. So, they immediately understood what was going on. According to the legend, every Nirvana of the Phoenix Clan is a transformation of strength. It is said that a pure-blooded phoenix will undergo Nirvana for its entire life. If it succeeds in Nirvana for the 9th time, it will be able to become an emperor. However, it seems that no one has been able to cultivate Nirvana technique to the 9th time except for the Phoenix ancestor. Someone exclaimed. They could naturally see that Yi Shiwen should not have reached the 9th time. Even so, it was a miracle that he could use Nirvana technique as an outsider. In fact, many people were involved in the Nirvana Great Law, but at most they could only use it as a reference to develop some suitable cultivation techniques for themselves. It was impossible for them to really use it because it was absolutely impossible to cultivate without the bloodline of the Phoenix Clan. Therefore, even though Nirvana technique had been widely spread, the ancient Phoenix realm did not care about it because it was useless for others to obtain it. However, Yi Shiwen was using Great Nirvana. He did not use it as a reference to develop his own magical power. It was the real Great Nirvana. Demon King was a great figure. If he said so, it would not be wrong. It was impossible for them to be wrong. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen did not need to undergo Nirvana 9 times. Even if he had one, it would be amazing enough. Demon King, if you don't move, you will be my real enemy. After I kill him, I will destroy the ancient heavenly court and cut off your inheritance. Emperor Ni's expression became colder. Many people gasped. A great sovereign said that he wanted to destroy the inheritance of another party. This was the most vicious curse for people of their level. The Demon Emperor didn't say anything. His expression was as calm as ever. Perhaps it was because he had experienced defeat. He had truly understood many things, far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Around him, strand after strand of Tao markings appeared, interweaving, wailing. All of the great Tao laws in this world crawled beneath his feet, unable to pose any threat to him. In the blink of an eye, he was already 100 years old and was no longer at his peak. However, he could still vaguely remember the days when he was at his peak. However, tens of thousands of years had passed. This was no longer his era. This battle might have truly come to an end. Cut off my inheritance? I'm afraid you won't be able to do so, Demon Emperor said as he pounced forward. The sword of Avicii slashed out, bringing with it a shocking trace of the way. No one knew what kind of sword technique it was. At his level, ordinary sword techniques were no different from him. He could use them all with earth-shattering power. Humph! Dini's body also gave off an undying celestial light that pierced through the sky. The Teia's sword was shaking, giving off boundless power. A 7-colored light shone out, as if it was rising into the sky. Countless sword lights pierced through it. Boom! All the forces collided together. One could imagine how terrifying the collision between emperors would be. The entire Milky Way exploded. Those people were so shocked that they hurriedly retreated, not daring to get close. Even though one of them was a genuine sovereign emperor while the other was only a primordial spirit, they were actually evenly matched. A cornered beast is still fighting. I didn't expect the legendary Demon Emperor to be so ignorant. Emperor Enai sneered. The Taiya sword in his hand emitted an unprecedented radiance, which could not be compared to when it was in the hands of an emperor-to-be. However, he still could not completely defeat the Demon Emperor. There was only one reason, and that was because he was wearing the robe of time. Even if he could break through the attack of the Demon Emperor, he could not really hurt him. Just like he had the myriad world diagram, No matter how strong the sword chi of the Demon Emperor was, it could not hurt him. But if this stalemate continued, it would be disadvantageous to both sides. For Yao Huang, a protracted battle was no different from courting death. No matter how strong the remaining power in his primordial spirit was, it was impossible for him to contend against a peaked sovereign emperor. But he could not afford to wait. Yi Shiwen's aura was getting stronger and stronger. Obviously, he was recovering. Once he recovered and passed the heaven's retribution, the consequences would be unimaginable. See how I break you? Emperor and I rushed over in one breath, turning into a ray of celestial light. He instantly rushed in front of Emperor and I. The Taiya, sword in his hand, swept out a brilliant sword radiance, smashing the sky, directly falling on the body of the Demon Emperor. Bang! Although the Demon Emperor had the protection of the Robe of Time and was not directly cut in half, he was blasted away in an instant and fell into the formation, almost causing the entire formation to collapse. Especially Yi Mo and the others. They could only under the protection of the yin-yang diagram and the phoenix robe. They did not dare to take a step out. The terrifying and chaotic wind was enough to completely destroy them. Even though they were Emperor and I, they could not be an exception. However, the only thing that comforted them was that Yi Shiwen's aura was gradually recovering, which meant that their chances of winning had greatly increased. Hold on, you must hold on, hold on. Yi Mo placed one hand on Yi Wudi's back, continuously injecting a monstrous amount of spiritual power into Yi Wudi's body. Because he had to support the Demon Emperor's manifestation, he was constantly consuming a large amount of spiritual power. If he did not do this, he would not be able to replenish his spiritual power. Yi Wudi spat out a mouthful of blood. The attack just now had also injured him. Hold on, Yi Shiwen is about to complete his nirvana. Then, Emperor and I will die. Young Kuan Peng also cheered him on, continuously injecting spiritual power into him. You want to stop me? Emperor Ni sneered and instantly rushed in front of the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor's spirit was still too weak. Even with the Demon Emperor's bell as its body, it could not withstand such a collision and fight. Bang! The Demon Emperor was sent flying again. After exchanging over 1,000 moves, the Demon Emperor could not withstand it in the end. After all, it was only a condensed spirit, which could not be compared to when it was at its peak. However, he did not hesitate and rushed forward again. At this time, the Demon Emperor's body had become more and more transparent after being severely injured several times, as if it was going to disappear at any time. Ha! Go to hell. You're already dead. Why did you show yourself? You can't even keep your last prestige. Emperor Ni roared and laughed. Then, he pounced on the Demon Royal again. Ha! Bang! However, this time, to everyone's surprise, it was not the Demon Emperor that was sent flying again, but the Emperor Ni's chest was pierced by a sword. The Avicii sword was madly absorbing the blood essence in the Emperor Ni's body. How is this possible? Emperor Ni stretched out his hand and pulled out the long sword. He retreated continuously, and there was a hint of vigilance in his eyes. The attack just now did not make him feel anything at all, and he was already severely injured. This was almost impossible. He was a sovereign emperor-level expert. What kind of tricks could he play? His brain could calculate countless times in an instant and calculate all the dangers, so it was impossible for the Demon Emperor to sneak up on him. However, the Demon Emperor had still done it. How'd he do it? How did you do it? Emperor and I asked while he was healing his wounds. Don't look down on me. After all, the time I took to become an emperor is longer than the time you spent cultivating. The Demon Emperor smiled. Even though his spirit was faintly discernible and was about to collapse, he was not moved at all. It was as if the person who was about to disappear was not him, but someone else. Even if that's the case, so what? You're still old. One strike. I only need one strike to completely bury you. The wounds on Emperor Ni's body were almost healed in the blink of an eye. The recovery ability of an emperor was just that terrifying. Senior Demon Emperor, thank you for your help. Leave the rest to me. A calm voice came from behind the Demon Emperor. You haven't passed the heavens' retribution yet, right? I can still buy you some time. The demon emperor did not need to look back. He just needed to stand with his hands behind his back to know that it was Yi Shiwen. At this time, only Yi Shiwen dared to make a move and could make a move. However, there was still a thunderstorm waterfall above Yi Shiwen's head. Every time it hit him, his skin would split open, and it seemed like he would die at any time. However, what was surprising was that under such a terrifying heaven's retribution, Yi Shiwen's aura did not weaken. On the contrary, it was getting stronger and stronger. His life force was gradually getting stronger and stronger. Yi Shiwen was getting stronger. It was incredible for such a completely contradictory situation to happen to a person. However, he had done it. He had completely integrated the aura of life and death into one. Just you? Emperor Enai sneered, but did not stop him. He was also hoping that Yi Shiwen would come out so that he would not have to break into the 5 yuan heaven punishment formation. Although this formation was not unbreakable in his eyes, it would still be delayed. That would give Yi Shiwen the most precious time. That's right, just me. In the endless thunderstorm waterfall, Yi Shiwen turned around and walked over step by step. Chapter 29:45. Yi Shiwen faced the thunderstorm waterfall and walked out step by step. The heavenly tribulation above his head never relaxed. With every step he took, his aura rose by a notch, and a terrifying aura was emitted from his body. He is really transforming, someone said in fear. He could feel that Yi Shiwen was getting stronger. He even had a feeling that Yi Shiwen would transform into a peerless emperor lord by himself after he had completed this journey. Everyone had the same feeling in their hearts because he was transforming. He was truly transforming. An unprecedented and terrifying transformation was taking place on his body and body. Senior, leave this to me. He is the last tribulation of my emperor tribulation. If I can't overcome it, the other tribulations will be meaningless. Yi Shiwen said faintly. He had completely understood. It was just like when many demon beasts crossed their tribulations. Someone would come and kill them at the right time. Was this really just a coincidence? In fact, this was not the case. On the contrary, this was actually a part of their tribulations. It was far from being as simple as the heavenly tribulation. There was also the tribulation of the mind and the tribulation of reality. When all of these were added together, it was the real heavenly tribulation. Many people had crossed the heavenly tribulation, but ended up dying in the hands of people who took advantage of them. It was said that the heavenly law was unfair. In fact, it was also a part of the heavenly tribulation. There was nothing much to say. Well, since you want to complete the last step of transformation, I will not stop you. Demon Emperor said faintly. On his body, the time robe and the Avicii sword peeled off and returned to Yi Shiwen's body. His body had become a lot dimmer. He was almost completely annihilated by the endless thunderstorm waterfall. Fortunately, the Demon Emperor Bell completely protected him, so he was not completely annihilated by the heavenly tribulation. After you get rid of this guy, we can have a good talk. Demon Emperor should have retreated at this time. However, there was a huge obsession in his heart that had not been completed. Therefore, his spirit did not collapse, but just retreated to one side. On the other side, Yi Mo and the others finally retreated at this time. They had been defending until now, and they had also persevered to the limit. It was simply impossible for a quasi-emperor to use a Dao tool to compare with a real emperor lord. But they had done it. They had done it with the help of the 5 yuan punishing heaven formation. Everything that happened today would become their most precious experience. One day in the future, they would benefit immensely. All right, now there's no one to stop us from fighting. Di and I looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. There was an unimaginably strong, murderous aura in his eyes. He was itching to kill Yi Shiwen. That's right. You and I have been fighting since many years ago. Now, it's time to put an end to it. In this world, it's enough to have one supreme being. Yi Shiwen's eyes were cold, but his expression was incomparably indifferent, as if he was talking about an insignificant matter. That's right, it should have been over long ago. Di and I said coldly, if I can't kill you, I will never be able to transcend. Today I will finish you off. You don't even have the dignity of an emperor? Don't tell me you're afraid of a fair fight? Yi Shiwen faintly smiled and seemed to be laughing very happily. You're afraid. You don't have to use this kind of method to shake my foundation. It's useless. I've already thought it through. You can't shake me with this kind of method. If I was alone, I would naturally want to have a fair fight with you. However, this fight concerns the future of the Tian clan. I can't afford to lose. I don't care even if I have to bet my dignity. DNI laughed. He saw through Yi Shiwen's plan, but he wouldn't fall for it. It doesn't matter. You'll be defeated sooner or later anyway, Yi Shiwen said faintly. In an instant, he moved. Whoosh! His entire body turned into a ray of divine light, piercing through the void and rushing to DNI. The sword aura of the Avicii sword was like a divine mountain, slashing down. You're not even an emperor. How dare you challenge me? DNI roared as if he was interrogating Yi Shiwen. The Taya sword in his hand began to hum, and a sword aura soared into the sky, slashing down on Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's figure seemed to be frozen in an instant, and then he was completely engulfed by the sword aura of the Taya's sword. Rumble! No one could see what was happening inside. The brilliant radiance of the Taya sword covered everything, and the entire world revolved around him. It was as if the place where the two of them were fighting was the real center of the universe, and everything had to revolve around it. Everyone only saw the endless golden light completely tear the brilliant radiance of the Taya sword apart. No one knew when Yi Shiwen was already in front of DNI. 6 paths of reincarnation fist break. Yi Shiwen punched out. In his hand was the Dark Bodhi Holy Hand, which was also a Dao tool. With the support of the Dark Bodhi Holy Hand, the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was amplified many times. Almost everyone felt the pull of the 6 paths of reincarnation at this moment. This was the recognition of the 6 paths of reincarnation by the heavenly Tao. Everything in the world was controlled by the 6 paths of reincarnation. The beginning of everything in the world began with the 6 paths of reincarnation. Even the deities were horrified to find that they could feel the aura of death again. One should know that this was almost impossible. These deities had already jumped out of the 3 realms and were no longer part of the 5 elements. For them, death was already something that happened in their previous lives. Unless they were severely injured, it was impossible for them to feel the aura of death again. But now, for no reason, they could feel the control of heaven and earth over them again. It turned out that death was not far away from them. It was just not close yet. Once it was close, even deities and quasi-emperors would not be able to escape. And Yi Shiwen had truly displayed the 6 paths of reincarnation and death. Time seemed to have turned back at this moment, as if he had returned to the time before he achieved Tao. Many people were horrified, and there was no doubt that Yi Shiwen's punch had reached an unprecedented level of Tao, reaching the limit of his cultivation. Compared to before, it was a complete transformation. In the past 3,000 years, he had changed too much, and his strength had improved by leaps and bounds. It was just that his opponent was an emperor and so he could not fully display it. What a great 6 paths of reincarnation fist, but it's useless. I'm not those deities. I'm not beyond the 3 realms or the 5 elements. I have completely surpassed this world and am on equal footing with the heavenly way. Do you think that the heavenly way can control me? DNI roared, and the Taya sword in his hand directly smashed the 6 paths of reincarnation fist that Yi Shiwen had punched out, displaying the super strength of an emperor and Thump, thump, thump. Continuous collisions spread out in all directions, and the heavens and the earth shook. Sand and stones were flying everywhere, and the ground was shaking violently. Yi Shiwen took a few steps back and finally managed to remove the amazing power from Ni's sword. Even the Demon Emperor's body, which was the main body of the Demon Emperor Bell, could not withstand it. But Yi Shiwen was not the slightest bit depressed, and he was not even the slightest bit moved. The blood in his body was surging more and more violently, like a stormy sea, constantly beating up the sky. Looking from afar, it seemed like his whole body was surrounded by golden flames. He stomped hard in the universe, and instantly trampled everything, and he instantly blasted towards D&I again. "You are courting death." D&I saw that Yi Shiwen did not advance, and he could not help but be a little angry. Yi Shiwen was not taking him seriously at all. The myriad worlds picture above his head was spinning, and it directly blocked the heaven's retribution. Then, thousands of rays of light appeared under his feet, and he also rushed forward. Bang! 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 The fierce battle between Yi Shiwen and NID broke out at this moment. It was different from the Demon Emperor's battle. Although the Demon Emperor wasn't at a disadvantage in his battle with NID and even had a slight advantage, he was just a spirit after all. Therefore, he didn't have much vitality that could be compared with NID. Yi Shiwen was completely different. His strength was not comparable to the Demon Emperor, but he had a physical body, and he was at the peak of his life, so he was not afraid of such a shocking battle of attrition. Moreover, he had the Chrono Robe to protect himself, and after Dini's attacks were weakened layer by layer, they could not injure him seriously. As long as he was not seriously injured and he had the Phoenix regeneration technique, it was naturally easy for him to recover. There was nothing fancy about the battle between the two. Their realms had long surpassed the realm of fancy martial arts, and every move was the original, especially Yi Shiwen, who had received the inheritance of the Star Emperor. In terms of realms and understanding of the Emperor realm, he was not weaker than D&I. All he lacked was time. As long as there was enough time, he could completely transform enough strength, and by then, everything would change. D&I also understood this. Therefore, his attacks were rapid and hurried. He constantly sent Yi Shiwen flying, and every single attack would cause Yi Shiwen to vomit blood. However, he was unable to inflict any fatal injuries. This made him extremely anxious. Dini's eyes became colder, and under the heaven's retribution, his heart became colder and colder. Yi Shiwen, you forced me to do this. I did not expect that I would have to use this against an ant of the Emperor realm. How ironic! How ironic! Ha ha ha! Dini laughed crazily. Yi Shiwen's expression suddenly became solemn. Dini's aura became heavier and heavier, as heavy as a mountain. Even with his monstrous spiritual power, it was actually sucked dry in an instant. Yi Shiwen, this attack is to send you to heaven. Dini seemed to have integrated with the universe, and he burst out a shocking attack and slashed down with his sword. Chapter 2946. Dini's aura was integrated with the entire universe. The power of the entire universe was also under his control, and all of it was crushed. Yi Shiwen's whole body seemed to be imprisoned. This power was the will of the universe, and it was also the will of Heaven Wei that was imprisoning him. Even Yi Shiwen didn't expect Emperor Ni to have such an ability. He could use the will of the heavenly law. This was simply impossible, but he still did it. Damn, just a little more, Yi Shiwen thought to himself. He already felt that the Emperor's retribution above his head was getting smaller and smaller. After deceiving the heavens with the Nirvana Major technique, the heaven's retribution had gradually dissipated. He didn't expect Dni to burst out such an amazing attack at this time. Yi Shiwen felt that he had been locked by this will, and even every point of his body was locked by a terrifying power. This was locking all of his escape routes in an instant. No wonder he had to use it as his last trump card. Yi Shiwen had nowhere to escape from this attack, and only death awaited him. I'll risk it. I can only try to take it head on, Yi Shiwen roared. However, just when Dini's attack was about to land on Yi Shiwen, suddenly a crisp cry was heard. A fire phoenix swept across the sky and directly rushed over to block this attack. Bang! This amazing attack directly hit the fire phoenix. In the endless sea of fire, a figure was blown away on the spot, and golden blood splashed in the sky. Menghan! Yi Shiwen roared. He clearly saw that the attack was not blocked by Hua Menghan for him. Who else could it be? Hua Menghan had forcibly taken on the trump card of an emperor's wrath and was sent flying. Numerous cracks appeared on his body. Even though the phoenix robe had dissipated most of the attack, the remaining attacks had still inflicted serious injuries on him. His entire body felt as if it would collapse at any time. Only a wisp of his primordial spirit was firmly holding onto his body in order to prevent it from collapsing. Otherwise, once it dispersed, there would be no possibility of recovery. "DNI, you are courting death." Yi Shiwen's eyes were red, and his expression was extremely cold. His eyes were full of killing intent as he looked at DNI. "Damn bitch, how dare you stop me?" DNI was completely enraged. He had prepared this attack for a long time, hoping to kill Yi Shiwen, but she had stopped him. He couldn't help but feel as though all his efforts had been for naught. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. "Die!" Yi Shiwen chased after him. The dark Bodhi divine hand emerged and grabbed the Avicii sword. "Dominate the world!" Yi Shiwen's sword chopped out, and the world shook violently. Cracks appeared in the space. Even the existence of the heavenly law had reinforced the space. However, it couldn't withstand the Avicii sword and collapsed into pieces. The stone was broken, and the heavens were alarmed. Everything was reversed here. DNI didn't have time to recover. He rushed forward and fought with Yi Shiwen. Bang! 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 In an instant, a shocking battle broke out between the two sides. In an instant, it was unknown how many moves they had exchanged. The place where the two of them fought had already turned into chaos. No one dared to approach at all. Yi Mo, Yi Qianqian, and the others also protected Hua Menghan, who was about to collapse, and retreated to the side. Yi Qianqian's pretty face had a somewhat complicated expression. She looked at Hua Menghan, and her heart was extremely complicated. Even with her inner pride, she didn't know what to say at this time. She always felt that she was the one who loved Yi Shiwen the most, but now it seemed that there might be someone in the world who loved him more than her. However, this thought only flashed through her mind. In such an intense situation, she didn't have much time to think about this. She just kept retreating. With the help of the spirit of the Demon Emperor, she retreated out of the battle range, and even kept retreating. Retreat quickly, this distance is not enough. The battle will be more intense later. Everyone naturally believed the words of the Demon Emperor, and they couldn't help but retreat. When they retreated out of the battle range, they looked at the two people in the middle of the battle, and it seemed that they had really gone crazy. In particular, Yi Shiwen's fighting style was even more violent. He was constantly attacking, using offense as defense. It seemed that he was completely enraged by Hua Menghan's serious injury, even though he didn't have the advantage in strength, and was even in the process of crossing the heavenly tribulation. His fighting style shocked many people. If they were in his place, they would have already died. Only an emperor like DNI could withstand such an attack. But even so, DNI still couldn't gain the upper hand. At this time, the fighting style of the two was completely the same. No fancy skills were used, only the most basic killing, the most violent battle. Attack against attack. Both sides didn't hold back their defense, leaving it to the Dao tools to complete. Although Yi Shiwen was constantly bombarded, even with the protection of the time robe, he was still injured, and blood splashed everywhere. However, his counterattack was also extremely sharp. He constantly waved the Avicii sword, and could even break the defense of the Myriad Worlds diagram. One should know that the true power of the Dao tools could only be unleashed in the hands of the earth. The Myriad Worlds diagram could attack and defend, and now it was specialized in defense. It should have been impossible for Yi Shiwen to defeat it, but Yi Shiwen did it now. Every attack could penetrate the defense of the Myriad Worlds diagram. Although he couldn't cause serious damage to DNI because he didn't have enough strength, even so, it was already completely beyond everyone's expectations. Seeing this scene, DNI couldn't help but be surprised, because he felt that Yi Shiwen was far more powerful than he was now. The most important thing was that his strength was still growing every minute and second. Originally, after entering the peak of the quasi-emperor level, even someone as strong as Yi Shiwen was only polishing his martial arts and slowly increasing his skills. It was impossible for him to advance by leaps and bounds like before. But now, his strength was increasing every minute and every second. It was like an endless black hole, increasing bit by bit. There was only one possibility, and that was that he was about to become an emperor. Sure enough, when he looked at the heaven's retribution above Yi Shiwen's head, it was getting smaller and smaller. He had passed the heaven's retribution. The heaven's retribution gradually disappeared, and Yi Shiwen's aura also became stronger and stronger as the heaven's retribution disappeared. Not only did it become stronger in form, but it was also a kind of qualitative improvement, a kind of transformation like a caterpillar breaking out of a cocoon and becoming a butterfly. He couldn't be more familiar with this kind of metamorphosis, because he himself had just experienced this kind of metamorphosis. He had never thought that he would be unable to stop Yi Shiwen from becoming an emperor, even though he had tried his best. Now, the only advantage he had was that Yi Shiwen had just passed the heaven's retribution and had not completed the transformation. He became an emperor, someone exclaimed. Everyone saw that the heaven's retribution cloud above Yi Shiwen's head was getting smaller and smaller, and when it finally disappeared, many people almost cried out. When everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was already in the dark, and the heavens and 10,000 realms were completely under the control of the Heaven Clan, they didn't expect that Yi Shiwen had already completed the heaven's retribution. It should be said that he fought too fiercely, and even dared to fight against Inverted Emperor before he became an emperor. Therefore, everyone even ignored the fact that he had not become an emperor yet, and almost treated him as an emperor lord. Now that the heaven's retribution had dispersed, it finally reminded everyone that the person in front of them had not become an emperor yet, and now he had finally reached the final stage of transformation and was about to complete the final transformation. Countless great path principles revolved around Yi Shiwen's body. 10,000 Tao principles resonated. All the principles resonated at this moment. It seemed as if they were submitting to the emergence of a new master. This made Yi Shiwen's originally suffocating feeling instantly become much better. If the entire world was a calculator, then these cultivators were the administrators of this calculator. Only these administrators could use some of the calculator's abilities and display the power of the laws. They could even use the laws to obliterate their opponents. Therefore, there was no doubt that apart from the heavenly way, the Emperor Lord should have the highest authority. Although Yi Shiwen was strong, his authority was incomparable to the Emperor Lord. He could compete with Inverted Emperor not only because his physical body was strong enough, but most importantly, his understanding of many laws was almost no less than Inverted Emperor's. Although Yi Shiwen's authority was not as high as Inverted Emperor's, he could still use the power of the laws. If it were an ordinary person, they wouldn't even be able to use the laws, and all of them would be restricted. But even so, the range of laws that Yi Shiwen could use was not wide, and some types were even completely restricted. It was as if someone was strangling your neck, making you unable to breathe. Inverted Emperor could only watch Yi Shiwen complete the transformation, and he felt that he couldn't summon the strength to stop Yi Shiwen for a while, because the attack just now had consumed too much power, and even with his majestic spiritual power that was like a vast galaxy, he still felt a sense of exhaustion. However, at this time, another terrifying aura was awakened in the universe. It seemed that it had been hiding before, but at this time, when Yi Shiwen was about to complete his transformation, it made its move. The timing was just right, not a single moment off. Everyone was stunned and scared silly. Another Emperor had made a move. No one had expected that at this critical moment, another Emperor would make a move to kill Yi Shiwen. In an instant, everyone had already guessed it. After all, in this world, if there was a second Emperor Lord, who else could it be other than Netherworld Emperor? Yes, it could only be him. Moreover, the hatred between Netherworld Emperor and Yi Shiwen was already known to everyone. At this moment he attacked. It was unexpected, but also reasonable. Chapter 2947. Some people were still hoping that he wouldn't make a move. After all, this was related to the success or failure of the Myriad Realms. However, this matter had nothing to do with him. Even if the heavenly race ruled the Myriad Realms, they probably wouldn't touch the Netherworld Kingdom, which also had an Emperor Lord. Otherwise, both sides would suffer. But at this time, he still made a move. He came to kill Yi Shiwen at the most crucial moment. There were no signs of this at all. He hadn't made a move before, so everyone thought that Ming Di had given up on killing Yi Shiwen. However, no one expected that Ming Di hadn't given up. Instead, he was waiting for Yi Shiwen's final opportunity. He had become an emperor himself, So he knew very well that Yi Shiwen was at his strongest before his transformation. It was also when he was at his weakest. If he was still transforming, then he wasn't a true Emperor Lord. The situation was completely different. Shrewd and vicious. These words popped up in Yi Shiwen's mind, but it was only for a moment. There was a huge roar. The Demon Emperor bell shook violently. It stopped everything. This attack broke through the air. It had the power to conquer the heavens, but it was stopped by the Demon Emperor bell. The bell waves of the Demon Emperor bell continued to spread. They swept out in circles, fighting against this attack in the most terrifying way possible. Everyone looked over and saw that the Demon Emperor's entire body was burning. His last bit of spirit was also burning here. He was going to block this fatal attack for Yi Shiwen. Demon Emperor, how dare you stop me? Ming Di's furious roar came from the void. Ming Di, this is no longer your era. For the sake of the myriad realms, I can't let you do whatever you want. The Demon Emperor's entire body was burning, but his face was extremely resolute. Even in the face of death, his mind couldn't be shaken. You're courting death! Ming Di roared in anger. At this time, Yi Shiwen had also completed the final transformation. His body emitted thousands of rays of multicolored light. Golden lotuses fell from the heavens and the earth, blooming in the void one after another. Multicolored light and purple chi swept across millions of miles. All the living beings in the universe felt an inexplicable pressure sweeping across, forcing them to kneel down and worship. Even the great figures in the Empyrean Lord's inheritance felt an incomparably terrifying pressure. They looked at each other in dismay. They had never expected that things would turn out like this. Yi Shiwen's Tao pressure when he became an emperor could penetrate the layers of great arrays that they had set up and affect them. One should know that not long ago, when Di and I became an emperor, they did not feel any Tao pressure because the imperial emperor's formation blocked all the pressure for them. So powerful. He has just become a martial monarch, yet he is already so powerful. His future is limitless. The last time I felt such a terrifying Emperor Tao pressure was when Emperor Qin achieved Tao. Many seniors seem to recall the grand occasion when Emperor Qin had become an emperor all those years ago. It had simply been overwhelming, especially when he was the only imperial monarch in the entire universe. He'd truly been a sovereign who descended to the world and was invincible. No one dared to disobey his orders, and he'd simply swept through everything in his path. All hail Emperor Yi! All hail Emperor Yi! Many disciples of the allied forces began to shout. This was involuntary, as if someone was controlling their bodies. Anyway, they just wanted to shout like this, and they just shouted like this. There was no other reason at all. Yi Shiwen's aura was gradually surging. His aura seemed to have broken through a huge boundary and rushed to an unprecedented realm in one fell swoop. The original shackles on him had also suddenly disappeared, as if a fish had returned to the sea from the land, and a dragon had returned to the sea. Is this the Emperor realm? Yi Shiwen clenched his fists. He had finally reached this step. In order to reach this step, he'd walked for tens of thousands of years since he'd started cultivating. For ordinary people, perhaps tens of thousands of years were already countless lifetimes, but for him, everything was still vivid in his mind, as if it had just happened yesterday. In the beginning, he'd struggled from the bottom of the martial artists, swept through all the way, and finally reached this scene. Even Yi Mo, who'd pushed him all the way up, had probably never imagined that he'd already reached this supreme position in just a short 10,000 years. Countless information of the great Tao poured into his mind, helping him to transform. After his realm had truly stepped into the Emperor realm, his physical body had also completed the transformation in just a few breaths. This was because after his realm had passed, his understanding of the great Tao had reached an unprecedented level. Completing the transformation of his physical body was just a small matter. Even though he'd made countless preparations and had imagined the scene of breaking through countless times in these thousands of years, when he really broke through, he still felt a little dazed and a little unreal. This is the real Emperor realm. I've finally reached this day, Yi Shiwen murmured to himself. His eyes swept across the universe, and everything was clear to him. There were no secrets. It was as if he could see straight into the clouds of the nine heavens with a single glance, and see straight into the netherworld with a single glance. Everything was in his eyes, except for the place where the Emperor's inheritance was located, which was concealed by the Grand Formation. Everything in the world was no longer a secret to him. It was like being in an empty, boundless room. Wherever he looked, everything was open to him. He could feel that the surrounding laws were also extremely happy. Yes, he could actually feel the emotions of the laws. It was an extremely happy emotion. Everything was so novel and so different. His transformation and his evolution were still ongoing, but he'd already firmly stood in this realm. Even though he'd never been here before, the foundation he'd laid before was too deep. It was so deep that even if he didn't consolidate it and retreat, he wouldn't have to worry about falling. This wasn't impossible. Although such cases were rare since ancient times, it wasn't unheard of. However, he didn't have time to consolidate his cultivation, because D&I in front of him had completely recovered his strength in just a few breaths' time. He'd recovered to the peak. I admit that my biggest mistake was letting you become so strong that you can't stop now, D&I said coldly. Don't talk as if you could deal with me in the past. Yi Shiwen said coldly. I started late but arrived first. Now, I finally caught up with you. Are you going to surrender without a fight, or wait for me to beat you until you can't take care of yourself, and then surrender without a fight? You're too arrogant. Even if you become an Emperor Realm Emperor, do you think you can kill me? It's rare to take someone's life in a battle between Emperor Realm Emperors. D&I frowned slightly. He was a little unhappy, but he wasn't angry. Previously, he was angry because, in his opinion, Yi Shiwen was just an ant. How dare he be so arrogant? Now that Yi Shiwen was on the same level as him, he naturally wouldn't deal with Yi Shiwen with the same attitude as before. What he said was also true. Although there were many Emperor Realm Emperors who died in history, in fact, based on the situation of the battles between Emperor Realm Emperors, there might not be anyone who died even after dozens or hundreds of battles. Previously, he wanted to kill Yi Shiwen, but that was only because Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary quasi-emperor. But now that Yi Shiwen had also become an Emperor Realm Emperor, the situation was different. It was difficult for there to be a real battle of life and death between Emperor Realm Emperors. It was too difficult for an Emperor Realm Emperor to kill another Emperor Realm Emperor unless there was a huge disparity in strength. Since Yi Shiwen was an Emperor Realm Emperor, he should act with the thinking of an Emperor Realm Emperor. What happened before should have been reduced to ashes long ago. It shouldn't be used as a standard to measure his actions at this time. The battle between Emperor Realm Emperors was extremely ruthless, but they should stop when the time was right. Otherwise, even if the other Emperor Realm Emperor couldn't deal with you, he could still seriously injure you. At that time, everything would be bad. Ants could be killed casually, but Emperor Realm Emperors couldn't be dealt with casually. I don't know what other Emperor Realm Emperors do, but all of this won't work for me, Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. Don't talk to me about what other Emperor Realm Emperors do, because it's meaningless. I said that I want you to pay the price for that blow, just now. You will pay with your life. What? You actually compare my life to that woman's? D&I frowned slightly. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was lowering his status. Who were they? They were dignified Emperor Realm Emperors. Yi Shiwen actually wanted him to pay the price for killing an ant. This was also lowering Yi Shiwen's status in disguise. Although he hadn't been an Emperor Realm Emperor for a long time, the Tian clan had always had the tradition of Emperor Realm Emperors. He was also cultivated by the Tian clan with all their efforts, so he had a complete inheritance. He was completely different from Yi Shiwen, who was half-baked. He quickly entered the state of Emperor Realm Emperors. That's right, I was wrong. What qualifications do you have to be compared with her? Who do you think you are? Yi Shiwen said lightly, with a mocking smile on his face. He didn't have the thinking of an Emperor Realm Emperor. In his opinion, D&I was just a murderer who hurt his woman. Even if it wasn't for the myriad realms for Hua Menghan, he couldn't let him go. He had to kill him. Good. D&I was completely enraged by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen actually said that he was inferior to an ant. D and I, prepare to die. I'm different from before, Yi Shiwen said lightly. In a flash, he attacked. The sword of Avicii had already appeared in his hand, and an earth-shattering sword light burst out. At this moment, the sword of Avicii really burst out its brightest light. Only a real Emperor Realm Emperor could exert its true power. Chapter 2948. The sword of Avicii in Yi Shiwen's hand was even more dazzling than when it was in the hands of the Demon King. This was its true master. After entering the Emperor realm, Yi Shiwen could truly control the sword of Avicii. Compared to the previous master of the sword of Avicii, Helm Master Avicii, he was not inferior. But even so, Yi Shiwen could not completely merge with the sword of Avicii. After all, it was not a life Dao tool. After this battle, he still had to refine his own life Dao tool. For an Emperor realm, it was no different than a second life. No one could ignore it. Yi Shiwen's body was dazzling with all kinds of law Dao marks flying around. As an Emperor realm, his words were the law. Even if he did not deliberately, the law in the sky would be used by him. At this moment, Yi Shiwen became extremely dangerous. The power of his attack did not look like someone who had just ascended. It was as if he was a top Emperor realm who had been ascending for many years. The powerful power caused the starry sky to explode in an instant. It blasted towards DNI. Bang! This attack was intercepted by DNI. Yi Shiwen, is this all you've got? It's not enough. Don't underestimate me, DNI said coldly. Although Yi Shiwen's method was a little tricky, he was indeed a genuine Emperor Lord in the end. Yi Shiwen had underestimated himself too much. A huge domain was formed around his body. In this domain, he was the real ruler of the world. No one could compete with him in this domain. This domain instantly shrouded Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a terrifying power surrounding his body. It was as if a bloody mouth was opened and it was going to swallow him. Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change. How could a true emperor fall just because of an attack just now? There was no fluctuation in his heart. He spread his arms, and a dazzling light burst out. Wisps of golden divine light flowed out of his body, elevating his great path. DNI was an Emperor Realm Emperor. He was also an Emperor Realm Emperor. Who would be afraid of who? Yi Shiwen took a step forward and directly rushed into DNI's domain. His fists were invincible. His fists crushed everything. Just one punch tore the domain apart. Boom! The entire domain was trembling violently, but it was still trying its best to hold on. However, Yi Shiwen's offensive was still constantly increasing. His whole body's magic power was burning, as if it had reached the limit. He directly punched with both of his fists, and the domain was smashed into pieces. Everyone held their breaths and focused their attention. This was a battle between two sovereign monarchs who had truly survived. Furthermore, they had both become sovereign monarchs not too long ago. Originally, they should be able to appreciate each other, but now they were engaged in a life and death battle. DNI's domain was very powerful, but Yi Shiwen was even more powerful. He destroyed everything with just a pair of fists, striking out with an invincible aura. The grand spectacle of the two of them exchanging blows left everyone dumbfounded. After countless years, there was finally a battle of this level. Your strength is only at this level? Yi Shiwen slightly sneered. This domain is not bad, but it can't trap me. DNI squinted at Yi Shiwen and said, You will regret this. Regret? I've never regretted anything. Yi Shiwen's body bloomed with a shocking murderous intent. He did not hide it, and there was no need. The position of the two of them was naturally an enemy. If you have any moves, use them as soon as possible. Otherwise, you won't have the chance. Since you could become sovereign monarch, the Tao you created must be extraordinary. If you don't enjoy it in this world and disappear forever, I also feel pity for you. Emperor Yi is looking down on DNIs. Everyone had subconsciously changed the way they addressed Yi Shiwen, Emperor Yi. Because these years he did not have any famous name, so he did not have any titles. He was only known by his surname, just like Emperor Qin. However, this was enough. He did not need any titles. His name represented a kind of extreme power and terror. Arrogant. We are both sovereign monarchs, and we both became emperors. Yi Shiwen became emperor for a shorter time. How dare he say this? The Heavenly Clan was naturally furious. They thought that Yi Shiwen was underestimating them. You don't need to worry. My Tao will naturally be passed down forever. As for you, I can't see your future. D&I said, not to be outdone. Above his head, the myriad worlds diagram rotated, constantly bursting with bursts of treasure light. It turned into an endless world, containing extremely terrifying great Tao laws. It was completely different from what Yi Shiwen had seen before. This was the true power of a Tao tool. It could attack and defend at the same time. It could not only be used for defense. Suppress him for me? Emperor Ni roared, and the myriad worlds diagram flew out instantly, pressing down on Yi Shiwen. As it flew, it became more and more terrifying every minute and second. It seemed to be absorbing the power of the myriad worlds diagram, expanding and becoming more terrifying. He is absorbing the power of the myriad worlds diagram. The truly terrifying side of the myriad worlds diagram is finally revealed. He can borrow the power of the myriad worlds diagram. This is the method and power of the Emperor level. It is not something we can compare with. Many people exclaimed. Many quasi-emperors were in despair in the face of this power. It was not something they could compare with at all. The old antiques who had witnessed the invincibility of the Emperor in all directions were fine. The quasi-emperors who had achieved Tao in recent years were even more desperate. Even though they knew how terrifying the Emperor was, they had never seen it for themselves. They were more or less hopeful. In fact, they were not that far away from the Emperor. Only now did they understand that it was not just not far away. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. They were not on the same level at all. Even if D&I had borrowed the opportunity of becoming an emperor, people would think that he had cheated, and his strength would inevitably be greatly reduced. Even so, it was enough to make them despair. They could not imagine how strong Yi Shiwen, who had forcefully broken the shackles and become an emperor, would be. Feel the anger of the myriad worlds diagram. D&I roared. The light of the myriad worlds diagram bloomed in his hands. You want to use the power of the myriad worlds diagram to suppress me? You are thinking too much. Yi Shiwen sneered. Kill. Kill until you don't dare to call yourself the emperor. Yi Shiwen punched out. The 6 paths of reincarnation instantly formed. A huge will slowly rotated behind him. The power of the 6 paths was incomparably majestic. The power of reincarnation in the entire universe was used by him in an instant. Yi Shiwen spread his arms and punched out continuously. The worlds that fell from the myriad worlds diagram, as well as the sun, moon, and stars, could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. They were all destroyed by him. Yi Shiwen's body shuttled back and forth in these transformed worlds. One world after another exploded on the spot wherever he went. He was like a terrifying devil king who could destroy the world. No world could survive under his feet. All of them exploded into pieces. Countless worlds exploded. Even a portion of the worlds was extremely terrifying. It was like a raging wave sweeping in all directions. Yi Shiwen kept shuttling through these worlds. He destroyed everything along the way and rushed towards D&I. Facing Yi Shiwen, D&I's expression was cold. The myriad worlds diagram above his head was also bursting with powerful light, protecting him. Whoosh! The Tai-E sword in his hand suddenly shot out. The brilliant rays of light formed a shocking sword energy in the sky. This sword light swept across, penetrated the stars, penetrated the world, and firmly locked onto Yi Shiwen, who was shuttling back and forth in the world of stars. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly, and the time robe on his body erupted with brilliant rays of light. The dark Bodhi divine hand was emitting the light of the Tao. He hadn't awakened the power within his body for countless years. Now his power had finally been restored under Yi Shiwen's usage. Bang! When the sword aura slashed towards Yi Shiwen, it was instantly knocked away by him. Rumble! The sword aura that was knocked away by Yi Shiwen deviating from its original trajectory, pierced through billions of stars and destroyed a galaxy, destroying countless lives. The Taya sword was too terrifying. Many immortal legacies were scared silly. They subconsciously wanted to escape, but they suddenly remembered where they could escape to. They suddenly realized that the myriad worlds was big, but it was actually very small. It was big because it was too wide for them. Even ordinary gods might not be able to travel through it in countless years. However, for a battle between emperors, the entire universe would be included in the battlefield. They said they wanted to escape, but where could they escape to? If they were not careful, such a sword aura would be enough to completely wipe out their immortal legacies. Under such circumstances, they said they wanted to escape, but in reality, where could they escape to? In a battle between emperors, there was no difference at all. They could only pray that their luck would not be so bad that they would be directly swept away by the emperor's attack. Yi Shiwen also realized this problem. It was just an attack that he had casually knocked away. If it was a quasi-emperor, such an attack would at most sweep away some stars, and then automatically dissipate in the universe. But it was different for emperors. The power of this attack was more than 100 times stronger. If the battlefield was in the Secret Alliance, this attack would be enough to completely wipe them out. At this time, he finally understood why the heavens and earth restricted the appearance of emperor-level experts. It would be terrible if a few more came. A battle would tear the heavens and earth to pieces. Therefore, when ancient emperors fought, they would set up emperor-level formations. All problems would be solved inside. Once the scope was exceeded, the heavens and earth would be in a mess. Even if they won, the heavens and earth would be punished. The heavens would be angry and let the emperors know who was the boss, because the heavens were the convergence of the will of all living things. Although the emperors were so unscrupulous, the heavenly Tao would represent them to destroy those emperors who did whatever they wanted. Yi Shiwen's thoughts flashed by, and he had already rushed in front of Emperor Ni. In an instant, the battle became violent again. Chapter 2949. Yi Shiwen completely exploded and rushed to the front of DNI. DNI, you're going to die today. Do you think I am the same as you? I'll let you understand now. What is the difference between me becoming an emperor and you becoming an emperor through trickery? Yi Shiwen felt that the rules between heaven and earth had become much stronger. The way of heaven was strengthening this space, so that the situation where he could shatter a galaxy with one sword would not happen again. He was relieved and could attack with all his strength. Previously, he had been very careful and did not dare to attack with all his strength. Now he had no such scruples. Yi Shiwen had gone berserk, and the magic power within his body was boiling. It surged like a monstrous wave and erupted amidst the endless golden light. In the blink of an eye, he blasted out millions of attacks. His speed was his strong point, and after becoming an emperor, his speed was greatly enhanced. He was so fast that those quasi-emperors were unable to capture all of his movements. They had to open their heavenly eyes to barely capture some of his movements. However, these movements were done many times before, and they could only do so much. Bang! Yi Shiwen's attack finally hit Dini's chest. Dini let out a muffled groan as he was sent flying. When he was at his peak, when he was most proud, Yi Shiwen seized the opportunity and hit him in the chest, sending him flying. All of this happened so quickly that many people didn't even have time to react before it happened. Dini was blown away. He flew across a galaxy and smashed into a horizontal star. The fiery horizontal star was smashed on the spot. The power of countless nuclear explosions inside exploded. Puff! Dini spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes changed. Everything happened so fast that he did not even have time to react. At the same time, Yi Shiwen's punch was too strong. In an instant, the attack actually broke through the protection of the myriad worlds diagram and blasted into his chest. It was really incredible. In the distance, Yi Shiwen was surrounded by countless rules. They turned into the 5 guardians of heaven and earth. The white tiger in the north, the azure dragon in the east, the vermilion bird in the south, the black tortoise in the west, and the qilin in the center. At this moment, The 5 mythological beasts in the ancient myths and legends who were responsible for guarding the world and maintaining the integrity of the world had actually manifested. They had frozen the space around Yi Shiwen's body in order to prevent his power from tearing the world apart. Yi Shiwen stood in the center of these 5 mythological beasts. He looked like the reincarnation of an ancient celestial emperor. He appeared incomparably majestic under the contrast of these 5 mythological beasts. One couldn't look directly at him. Emperor Yi is invincible. Throughout the myriad realms, many people cried out in shock and worshipped him. Yi Shiwen's strength had reached an unimaginable level at this moment. Everything had erupted. It was even to the extent that even the inheritances of the imperial monarchs were shocked. Because even though their ancestors had records of battles between imperial monarchs, it hadn't been as shocking as witnessing it with their own eyes. This simply toppled their worldview. He had just advanced to martial emperor, and he was already unrivaled. However, at this time, when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was still there, his figure suddenly shattered in the air. Afterimage, it's an afterimage. Only then did everyone realize that what they saw was Yi Shiwen's afterimage from who knew how long ago. Where was his original body? Many people looked towards DNI, but they didn't know when Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of DNI. He had directly traveled through space. Originally, the space around DNI had been locked by the Myriad Realms diagram, and no one was allowed to travel through space to him. But now, Yi Shiwen had directly torn apart the space lock with his hands. His whole body was shining with golden light, like a golden man, and he instantly entered DNI's defense circle. All of this happened too quickly, especially the unexpected attack. It broke through DNI's space defense in an instant. DNI didn't expect this at all, so he wasn't prepared at all. Yi Shiwen's attack had already arrived, directly blasting into DNI's body. It was simply a fatal blow. Puff! Yi Shiwen's fist pierced through DNI's body. Blood splattered in all directions like a waterfall, and bone fragments flew everywhere. His spirit also seemed to have been contaminated with combustible substances, burning fiercely. Everyone was stunned. When they looked over, the battle had already progressed to this point. Yi Shiwen's speed was faster than their reactions. DNI was actually injured. Although there had always been rumors of emperors being seriously injured or even killed, everyone knew that the physical bodies of emperors were extremely terrifying. They could easily survive in the most dangerous places in the world, not to mention occasionally seeing an emperor injured with their own eyes. This attack was too terrifying. If it were an ordinary quasi-emperor, he would have been killed in an instant. Is DNI dead? Someone said in a trembling voice. But soon, they didn't have to see for themselves because Yi Shiwen moved again. In just an instant, he held the Avicii sword in his hand and chopped down. It was like an ancient mountain had been chopped down. As he raised his hand, the wind and clouds between heaven and earth changed, and the color of the universe changed. The devil's wings behind Yi Shiwen opened and flashed gently. Just when everyone was feeling strange, they saw DNI in front of Yi Shiwen being torn apart by the astral wind caused by Yi Shiwen's devil's wings. Only then did everyone realize that it was also an afterimage. DNI's real body had already escaped far away. DNI's figure stopped thousands of miles away, and he kept panting. The attack just now was too terrifying. Even the Myriad Worlds diagram couldn't defend against it. Yi Shiwen was simply too fierce. Even the Tao instruments were useless in front of him. But before he could catch his breath a little, he saw that Yi Shiwen had actually rushed over to him without him noticing. Yi Shiwen had already gone crazy. The Avicii sword turned into a bloody hell, enveloping DNI and swallowing him completely. Kill, kill, kill. Yi Shiwen's series of attacks came one after another. It seemed that he didn't give DNI a chance to recover at all, and directly strangled him to death. Puff! DNI's body was slashed by the sword on the spot. Due to the protection of the Myriad Worlds diagram and the strength of his emperor's body, he wasn't cut in half on the spot. But the violent power still caused dense cracks to appear on his body, and he was almost cut into pieces in the void. A series of heavy injuries made people feel breathless. It was as if someone was holding their necks tightly. They couldn't bear to blink at all. Otherwise, they would miss the most exciting battle in a breath's time. In today's world, the most terrifying collision between emperors. Although D&I had the emperor's body and the protection of the myriad worlds diagram, his body was still broken, and blood was spurting out like a waterfall. Yi Shiwen's various attacks were still falling at an astonishing speed, and they constantly fell on D&I's body, wanting to smash his body into pieces. Only another emperor could injure an emperor to this extent. This was an unchanging truth. Yi Shiwen kept attacking, and D&I kept running. D&I's movement speed was very fast, but Yi Shiwen's speed was even faster, and he kept chasing. The Avicii sword in his hand was extremely fast, and its power was also extremely strong. The continuous attacks even made D&I's Taya sword unable to attack. In such a situation where he was being beaten passively, a purely offensive Dao tool like the Taya sword was too useless. But it had to be said that the Emperor's body was extremely strong, and it was very difficult to kill an emperor throughout the ages. This was not without reason. Even so, D&I was still not beaten to death. He spurted out a mouthful of blood, which turned into an amazing power, and forcibly brought him out of Yi Shiwen's attack range. Huff, huff! D&I's heavy breathing could be heard throughout the universe. His breathing was one with the Great Way, and his breathing was the breathing of the Great Way. It was a kind of manifestation of the Great Way. He stood in the universe with blood all over his body. The series of storm-like attacks just now had really beaten him up, and he was almost beaten to death. If he had not used a secret technique at the last and most crucial moment, he might have really died in Yi Shiwen's hands. His expression was cold, and he was not angry, and he did not roar, because he knew very well what kind of terrifying existence he was facing. Yi Shiwen was the most terrifying opponent he had encountered after he had become an emperor. He had never thought that someone could force him to this extent. It was reasonable to say that no one in this world could do this. However, Yi Shiwen, who had also just become an emperor, had accomplished such a thing. How could he not feel palpitations in his heart? At this time, with D&I's heavy breathing, everyone felt like their necks were finally being released. Although no one was strangling their necks, they had this feeling, and now they had a chance to breathe. In the myriad of worlds, everyone was shocked. The scene just now was too terrifying. A sovereign monarch was suppressing another sovereign monarch, beating him up all the way, almost beating him to death, crushing his primordial spirit, causing him to never be able to reincarnate. This result was too frightening. They were so nervous just now, so they did not think too much about it. But now the more they thought about it, the more frightening it was. It was just like a nightmare. Even the antiques who inherited the emperor's inheritance might not have been able to see such a soul-stirring battle. It was rare in the ancient times. Perhaps no one would have thought that Yi Shiwen, who had also just become an emperor, would fight like this. D&I was beaten to a point where he could not fight back. Just a little more, and I almost killed an imperial monarch. How terrifying. I almost succeeded. I just felt as if I was being strangled. I almost couldn't catch my breath and suffocated to death. Seeing that D&I had escaped, Yi Shiwen didn't chase after him. He just said coldly, D&I, you and I have been fighting for so many years. It's time to end it. If you don't have any other means, I will destroy your legend today. Chapter 2950. Everyone was shocked. They were a little dumbfounded as they looked at this scene. They stared at Yi Shiwen. It seemed that they couldn't understand why he had suddenly become so violent. Compared to before, there was a fundamental difference in his playstyle. I really underestimated you, Yi Shiwen. I didn't expect you to have such strength when you just became an emperor. Unfortunately, you were still a little bit weaker. You still couldn't kill me in the end. D&I looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, It doesn't matter. I just didn't kill you this time. There will be many opportunities later. After all, this is just the beginning. Yi Shiwen said calmly. He didn't seem to be troubled by the fact that he didn't seize the opportunity this time. In just a moment, the injuries on D&I's body were almost healed. The recovery ability of a true emperor's body was really amazing. Under the circumstance that Yi Shiwen wasn't chasing after him, He had almost recovered in a short period of time, although he must have used the power of origin. However, considering the injuries he had sustained just now, it was already very shocking. D&I flipped his palm, and a golden elixir appeared. He looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "I didn't plan to use this golden elixir. This is the golden elixir left by Alchemy Emperor. I didn't expect that I would have to use it soon after becoming an emperor. Life is really unpredictable." Dini's expression was extremely calm. However, in this calmness, there was unparalleled indifference. The indifference was terrifying. He swallowed it and carefully glanced at Yi Shiwen. However, he saw that Yi Shiwen didn't intend to take the opportunity to attack him. His heart unexpectedly gave birth to a bit of anger amidst the deathly stillness. He understood the meaning of Yi Shiwen's expression. Yi Shiwen didn't put him in his eyes at all. Yi Shiwen thought that even if D&I tried his best, he could still kill D&I. This was an invincible confidence. However, it was a shame for D&I. No matter what, he was an emperor. How could he not be angry when he was looked down upon? After swallowing the golden elixir, Dini's aura recovered even faster. His aura was even getting stronger. Even though it was only a temporary increase, the magnitude still surprised many people. Many people didn't dare to say it on the surface. However, they couldn't help but think that Yi Shiwen was being too arrogant. One must know that his opponent wasn't a quasi-emperor. Instead, it was another emperor. Yi Shiwen had become an emperor earlier than Yi Shiwen, even if he had resorted to trickery. Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change. However, he was very intelligent. So, he naturally knew that many people were saying that he was too arrogant at this time. But no one knew what he was thinking. D&I needed time to recover, and he also needed time to consolidate his cultivation. It might be enough to deal with D&I, but it wasn't enough to deal with Ming Di. Although he didn't know what Ming Di would do in the end, he had to be prepared for the worst. Without a doubt, the worst-case scenario was D&I and Ming Di joining forces. He had to be prepared to fight both of them at the same time. If it really came to that, his inability to consolidate his cultivation might become his fatal weakness. No one had thought of this. Or rather, it was not as far away as Yi Shiwen thought. His vision had already moved away from the battle in front of him and was thinking further into the future. He was determined to win this battle. He had spent a lot of effort to set up this trap just to lure the NID out. If the NID escaped, then all his efforts would be in vain. He couldn't bear the consequences of that. It wouldn't be so easy to lure D&I out again. The heavens and myriad realms would be gone by then. Yi Shiwen, I don't know where your confidence comes from. However, I will use the facts to tell you that your confidence is wrong. Very wrong, D&I said coldly. I have never used such a move before. However, you have forced me to this point. You must die. Although I became an emperor with the help of an emperor's opportunity, I will tell you that I am definitely worthy of such an achievement. D&I was sick of everyone's endless guesses. Although no one dared to say anything in front of him, the rumors about him using tricks had been circulating in the various worlds. This annoyed him to no end, and his heart was filled with disgust. Whoosh! D&I rushed directly in front of Yi Shiwen. His speed was extremely fast. Thousands of auspicious signs appeared under his feet and pulled out thousands of purple clouds. In an instant, he surpassed time and space and appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. It was just a simple punch, yet the entire world seemed to be wailing in pain. Miserable cries rang out again and again, unable to withstand such power at all. Bang! This attack directly hit Yi Shiwen's time robe and was blocked by thousands of time power. However, when Yi Shiwen wanted to fight back, D&I had already disappeared. D&I disappeared. Where did he go? Many people exclaimed. They couldn't keep up with D&I's sudden disappearance. So fast. Is this D&I's trump card? Yi Shiwen's expression became a little solemn. Although the attack was blocked by the time robe, he still felt the vibration. This showed that Emperor Ni's attack was indeed tyrannical. Whoosh! Emperor Ni, who had disappeared, suddenly reappeared. He rushed in front of Yi Shiwen and threw the same punch. The heavens and the earth roared. His fist was like a huge beast that swallowed everything. Insignificant skill, Yi Shiwen displayed all kinds of secret techniques at the same time. His hands tore out endless golden light and tore the beast apart on the spot. However, D&I disappeared again. Is this the law of space? No, I didn't feel any fluctuations in space. Yi Shiwen immediately denied his speculation. With his current understanding of the law of space, it was impossible for anyone to use the secret technique of space in front of him, even if the opponent was also an emperor. He was confident. In that case, this is pure speed. Yi Shiwen's speed was also very fast. Naturally, he knew some signs of fast speed. However, he didn't expect D&I to have such a technique. It was faster than the speed of space transmission. He was caught unprepared. As expected, those who could become emperors were not simple. They could pose a threat to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen, you must not have expected this either. This is my hidden trump card. No one has ever made me use it because I can only use it once. In the field of speed, no one can compete with me. Even you, who are also an emperor, are not qualified. The Tai sword suddenly appeared above Yi Shiwen's head as soon as D&I's voice fell. It almost killed him. Bang! This attack was blocked by Yi Shiwen's dark Bodhi divine hand. The huge power caused a violent tremor in the myriad world. Countless shock waves spread out. Yi Shiwen was as motionless as a mountain, but he had already figured out what was going on in his heart. He was afraid that it was related to that medicinal pill. Without the efficacy of that medicinal pill, he wouldn't have been able to have such martial power to support such an operation. Moreover, he also had a secret technique that could only be used a limited number of times. However, it was hard to say whether it could only be used once like what an ID had said. Who knew if what he said was true or false? It had to be said that Yi Shiwen's thinking was very terrifying. In just a short period of time, he had thought of so many things. That was why he couldn't easily show his trump card to others, especially for existences at their level. Once a trump card was used, it would be easy for others to find clues. Even if they couldn't really understand the principle, they could guess some signs. At that time, it would not be so useful. Bang! 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 D&I kept attacking and bombarding Yi Shiwen's defense. The speed of both sides had soared to the extreme. No one could see D&I's trajectory at all. Everyone could only judge by Yi Shiwen's attacks. Yi Shiwen's speed was also very fast. The demon wings were used to the extreme. His body didn't move, but the speed of his attacks was used to the extreme. It was extremely terrifying. Although D&I's speed was very fast, he kept blocking. Occasionally, he missed some attacks, but it was difficult to break the defense of the time robe. Emperor Ni's extreme speed even formed a huge whirlwind in the universe, and the center of the whirlwind was Yi Shiwen. Those below the quasi-emperor level couldn't see what was happening inside at all. They could only see his figure constantly flashing, and occasionally see some fragments. The time robe is really good. It suits me the best. D&I's mocking voice reached Yi Shiwen's ears. Obviously, he was very proud. He could finally hold his head high. The resentment that Yi Shiwen had been suppressing for a long time was finally released. In this process, Yi Shiwen could only keep being beaten. He couldn't turn passivity into initiative. He was so happy. There was nothing to be happy about defeating an ant. However, if he could defeat Yi Shiwen, who was also an emperor, it would be a great sense of achievement. You underestimated me. If you are still alive, come and get the time robe. Yi Shiwen's expression was extremely calm. It was as if he wasn't the one constantly being attacked. He wasn't moved by D&I's words at all. He broke D&I's attack with a wave of his hand, which contained the law of the Great Way. No, you are buying time. After a long time, D&I finally realized something was wrong. Then, a hideous expression appeared on his face. If you think you can exhaust me to death, then you are very wrong. I have this gold core as my foundation. I am afraid that even if you are exhausted to death, I will not be exhausted to death. You are partially right, but not completely right. Chapter 2951. You guessed part of it, but not all of it. Yi Shiwen's cold voice came. I am indeed stalling for time, but I am definitely not trying to exhaust you to death, because I don't need it. Yi Shiwen shouted and attacked amidst the endless hurricane. The sword radiance of the Avicii sword split everything apart. The hurricane that was originally around Yi Shiwen stopped and was forcibly suppressed. A sword aura shot up into the sky, 100,000 miles away. The hurricane that NID had created instantly collapsed, rushing in all directions. Many stars trembled violently and exploded in an instant. Yi Shiwen's sword directly slashed NID, who was moving eternally. NID's speed was so fast that he couldn't even react. Yi Shiwen's speed was also very fast. He could capture the trajectory of NID's speed in the endless storm. DNI staggered and fell out. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes. It seemed that he did not expect Yi Shiwen to be able to strike him out with one sword. This sword directly struck the Myriad Worlds diagram and broke the defense of the Myriad Worlds diagram. The remaining sword radiance blasted DNI's body. DNI kept retreating. Even with the protection of the Myriad Worlds diagram, he still could not stabilize himself and was almost blown away. This is impossible. His figure disappeared again and formed a chaotic storm between heaven and earth. Instantly, a fierce battle broke out again. Fierce battles once again spread throughout the entire universe. Bang! 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 Fierce battles and fierce collisions. Every time these two Emperor-level experts collided, heaven and earth would shake violently and the stars would collapse. At this point in the fierce battle, both sides were completely burning up. All the secret techniques were used as if they were free. DNI was originally from the Emperor's inheritance. It could be said that his inheritance had been passed down for a long time. In addition, several Emperors of the Sky Clan were generous in teaching him. In order to make him stronger and eventually become an emperor, they taught him many secret techniques. Although Yi Shiwen had come from an unorthodox background, he had actually learned a lot of secret techniques because of various fortuitous encounters. In this way, when the two of them fought, all kinds of secret techniques emerged one after another. The entire universe became a sea of laws and secret techniques. Countless laws and paths that were rarely seen were manifested at this moment. As the two of them fought, they were like surging waves that spread in all directions. Bang! Everyone heard another deafening explosion that spread throughout the universe. DNI was sent flying out of the purple storm. Yi Shiwen immediately rushed out. His entire body was surrounded by tens of thousands of techniques. Countless runes densely covered his body and transformed into layers of strange phenomena. He was like a mighty celestial emperor. "You're delaying for time to consolidate your cultivation," DNI roared. "How dare you?" At this time, DNI finally knew what Yi Shiwen was planning. Yi Shiwen was indeed stalling for time, but he did not want to exhaust him to death. Instead, he wanted to consolidate his cultivation. At this time, the horror of Yi Shiwen breaking the shackles and becoming an emperor finally manifested completely. Even after taking the golden pill, the inverse emperor still had a feeling of fear. Yi Shiwen rushed forward, his hands tearing apart the defense of the space. The defense of the Myriad Worlds diagram couldn't withstand his attacks at all. "I'll fight you to the death." DNI was shocked, but he had no other choice. He could only rush forward and fight with Yi Shiwen. Bang! 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 Under Yi Shiwen's attack, DNI was no match for him at all. He retreated step by step in Yi Shiwen's hands. All kinds of laws intertwined, and blazing lights danced. These attacks directly shattered the defense boundary of the Myriad Worlds diagram. It had no time to reorganize itself, and Yi Shiwen punched it. Bang! Yi Shiwen punched directly into DNI's body. DNI's chest exploded on the spot, and countless amounts of blood splattered out. At this time, Yi Shiwen looked extremely cruel and powerful. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Countless spiritual energy flew up from all over the universe, forming a violent storm. Then, it integrated into Yi Shiwen's body, like a torrent, to replenish Yi Shiwen's consumption. In the Myriad Worlds, countless people were shocked. Yi Shiwen had absorbed countless cosmic essences in one breath. If several emperors were to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth at the same time, it would be a disaster. DNI fled frantically. He kept retreating, trying to avoid Yi Shiwen's attack range. Go to hell? DNI kept roaring. He suddenly went crazy, no longer having the calmness and tranquility he had at the beginning. Obviously, he had been forced into a dead end. His whole body was shining, dazzling, and he suddenly attacked Yi Shiwen. Every single one of these attacks was like a dazzling waterfall that was invincible. However, Yi Shiwen was obviously more powerful. None of these attacks could even make him frown. He directly tore these attacks apart. 6 paths of reincarnation fist, sky flipping seal, sword of domination. Many secret techniques flew out of Yi Shiwen's body. At this moment, Yi Shiwen seemed to have turned into the 1,000-armed Guanyin. Each of his hands was releasing supreme martial arts, directly smashing the heaven and earth, and directly returning to the chaotic era. Even DNI was unable to resist such an attack. He was drowned by Yi Shiwen's attacks and murderous intentions. Although the Myriad Worlds diagram tried to protect him, his defense was eventually breached. All the power was exerted on him, and he was seriously injured again. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen's strength seemed to be increasing at every moment. The more he fought, the braver he became. Even when facing DNI, who had taken the golden elixir and his combat power increased greatly, he was not at a disadvantage at all. Gradually, he completely suppressed Yi Shiwen and gained the upper hand. Impossible. This is impossible. DNI's eyes were wide open. He still could not believe it. He was also an emperor. How could there be such a huge difference in their combat power? This itself was completely illogical. It's useless. In front of me, it's useless even if you want to struggle. All of Yi Shiwen's martial arts and magical powers burst out in an instant. Thousands of techniques were used, and they blasted towards DNI. The chaos was trembling. An intense collision was unavoidable. The attack landed on DNI's body and sent him flying again. He was already injured, and now he was even more injured. He was severely injured in an instant. Yi Shiwen was about to pounce on DNI again to get rid of this super threat that he had been worried about for countless years. Suddenly, DNI roared, unbounded Voyager. He turned into a terrifying ball of light, and countless Hongmeng purple gas burst out at this moment. His speed was also pushed to the extreme in an instant. This was what he learned when he discovered that secret technique. It could be used together with his invincible speed, and even an emperor would be smashed into pieces. He was no longer asking for that kind of power. He only wanted to severely injure Yi Shiwen and buy himself enough time. He was gambling. If he won, then it would be fine, but if he lost, he might be killed. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's dark Bodhi divine hand appeared in his hand. He grabbed the Avicii sword in his hand, and suddenly, there was vermilion blood flowing between heaven and earth. It was as if the heavens were bleeding and crying. Dominate the world. Everything in the world shall be under my control. Yi Shiwen roared and slashed down with his sword. The sword light tore through the space and everything. All of NID's spells and attacks were turned into nothingness by this sword. They were buried in an instant. Boom! After burying all of NID's attacks in an instant, Yi Shiwen held the Avicii sword and rushed towards NID in one step. Then he slashed down with his sword. DNI had already felt the danger in this sword. His expression suddenly changed, and he retreated. However, Yi Shiwen did not give him a chance to escape. The Avicii sword became bigger and bigger, and the entire world seemed to be shrouded in this Avicii sword. Everywhere was a bloody hell of the Avicii sword. I'll kill you. DNI's eyes were bloodshot, and he roared. The time, his sword in his hand burst with amazing light. He did not care about his injuries and directly slashed out, showing his real strength as an emperor. However, Yi Shiwen was expressionless. He did not change because of DNI's actions. Boom! The two Dao weapons roared violently in the sky. An eternal light burst out from the collision. The golden sword light of the Tai sword and the bloody sword light of the Avicii sword collided directly. It was like two huge waves colliding, annihilating everything. However, this stalemate only lasted for a moment. The sword light of the Avicii sword crushed DNI in an instant, and the endless light of the Tai E sword was completely destroyed. DNI only felt his vision go black. The sword light of the Avicii sword cut through the sword light of the Tai E sword and directly smashed the defense of the myriad worlds diagram and fell on his body. Puff! Dini's emperor body was extremely strong, but his entire body was instantly split in half after being hit by this sword. The two halves of the inverse emperor's body exploded. The inverse emperor wanted to break free, but how could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? The time robe erupted with amazing light, instantly tearing apart the power of time and bombarding the inverse emperor. Bang! DNI screamed, and his body that had not yet recovered was smashed in half by Yi Shiwen's sword again. However, Yi Shiwen's attack was not over yet. He attacked crazily, and in less than a dozen breaths, DNI was dead. His spirit was destroyed, and his body was captured by Yi Shiwen to feed to the Monster Kings. Chapter 2952. This unparalleled battle ended. The world had never been so tragic before. An Emperor Lord who had just become an emperor died tragically. Blood stained the ground. Yi Shiwen was indifferent. He stood proudly in the sky. His gaze pierced through countless spaces. He seemed to be staring at something. His black hair was scattered on his shoulders. He looked at the world with disdain. This battle was extremely tragic. Yi Shiwen killed an Emperor Lord with his own hands. He was extremely strong. It left a very deep impression on everyone. He had just become an Emperor Lord, but he was already so strong. It almost made people see the rebirth of Emperor Qin many years ago. The strength of someone who became an Emperor Lord during the confinement period was unimaginable. Even if there was a gap between the two emperors, it was not fatal. After all, an Emperor Lord had many life-saving means. However, DNI was still killed. It was conceivable that the gap between the two sides was not small. They had both just become emperors. Why was there such a big gap? Everyone could only say that one had used a trick and the other did not. Was there such a big gap between becoming an Emperor Lord through a trick and becoming an Emperor Lord normally? Originally, the gap between becoming an Emperor Lord normally and becoming an Emperor Lord by chance was not enough for DNI to be killed. However, Yi Shiwen did not become an Emperor normally. He broke through the confinement period and became an Emperor Lord. Since ancient times, apart from him, only Emperor Qin has done it. This is the fundamental reason why DNI was killed in the battle. In the Ark of Heaven, Lucifer sighed. He was not sure whether he was excited or surprised. He never expected such a change. Although he felt that Yi Shiwen might become an emperor, he never thought that Yi Shiwen would become an emperor during the confinement period. He had also reached that step. However, because of this, he knew how difficult it was to take the last step. He did not expect that he finally did it and killed DNI in one battle. He was extremely domineering. He remembered that he said he would go to that place with Yi Shiwen. Now that he thought about it, Yi Shiwen had become an emperor, but his emperor road was still far away. Even if the confinement period was coming to an end, it would disappear sooner or later. He did not know if he had the chance to become an emperor. Unless he really took the last step, no one could be 100% sure. No one in the world can stop him anymore. The human race has another Emperor Lord. I am afraid that in the next countless years, the human race will rule the world. When the Hidden Alliance was established, many people said that they were overestimating themselves. Now, does anyone still think that they are overestimating themselves? Emperor Lord's inheritance. There is another Emperor Lord's inheritance in this world. Many of the old-timers couldn't help but sigh. They didn't know what to feel. The rebellious emperor was killed. From now on, everyone would no longer have to worry about being ruled by the Heavenly Clan. However, there was no doubt that the human clan would be strong for a long time after Yi Shiwen became an emperor. But it was still better than being a slave to the Heavenly Clan. However, everyone immediately found something strange. Yi Shiwen's eyes were looking straight into the distance. It seemed as if he was looking through countless layers of space. It seemed as if he was confronting someone. The Taya sword and the myriad worlds diagram tried to escape, but they were caught by the giant hand formed by the principles around him. He wasn't in a hurry to refine them, but rather he seemed to be confronting something. Could it be Emperor Hades? Many people thought of this possibility. It seemed to be the only explanation. No, that's not the direction of the Netherworld Kingdom. Someone said, although people didn't know much about the Netherworld Kingdom, it didn't mean that they didn't know anything about it. Many Emperor Lords' inheritances had records of the general direction of the Netherworld Kingdom. It's not Emperor Lord Ming? Many people gasped. If it was Emperor Lord Ming, it wouldn't be strange. Emperor Lord Ming had attacked Yi Shiwen before he became an emperor. Adding on the previous grudges, it was normal. But if it wasn't Emperor Lord Ming, it would be terrifying. This meant that there was actually an imperial monarch in this world. That was a big deal. Everyone thought that there were no other Emperor Lords in the world. Even Emperor Lord Ming had been in a deep slumber for hundreds of millions of years. It wasn't surprising that he was still alive, but there were no other Emperor Lords. No one had heard any news about them. Could it be that he hadn't appeared for so many years? Many people felt confused. If it was a sovereign emperor who had been cultivating for many years, then it meant that his strength might be far superior to Yi Shiwen, who had just become a sovereign emperor. Once he took action, it was likely that the new situation that had just been formed in the heavens would change again. Everyone was guessing, but no one had any clue. Why is he like this? Could it be that what Emperor Qin said before was true? Fire Dragon Supreme muttered to himself in the base camp of the Allied forces. He broke out in a cold sweat when he thought of this. His hair stood on end. He remembered something that had been buried deep in his heart. When Emperor Qin had just become an emperor, he had a confrontation with someone. Someone had attacked Emperor Qin from afar, almost killing him before he had even become an emperor. Over a long period of time, the two sides had fought several times. The other side had suddenly attacked, and the Emperor Qin had been prepared to counterattack. At that time, he didn't even understand how they had fought because they had fought from afar. He didn't even know where the battlefield was. He only knew that it was very shocking. Every time they fought, even new martial grandmasters would be affected. But that was a long time ago. After Emperor Qin left, the mastermind had never appeared again, so he had gradually forgotten about it. He even thought that Emperor Qin had already finished off the other party. But now, Yi Shiwen's appearance made him feel as if he had returned to the era when Emperor Qin had just become an emperor. He felt extremely horrified when he came to such a conclusion. What kind of existence was an Emperor Lord? They were the most powerful group of people in the world. They were not on the same level as peak Emperor Lords like them. What kind of existence would dare to covet an Emperor Lord and dare to attack an Emperor Lord? No matter what, it had to be another Emperor Lord. Moreover, it should be an extremely powerful existence among the Emperor Lords, because he had once unintentionally heard Emperor Qin mention that the main body of the other party was not here. It was just that the other party had attacked him from afar. Even so, it had almost caused Emperor Qin, who had just achieved Tao, to die. How powerful must this person be? This made him suddenly realize that the mastermind might not have left. Or perhaps, although he had never come, he had never stopped spying on the myriad realms. How terrifying was this? Just thinking about it sent chills down one's spine. Yi Shiwen stood tall in the air. His eyes were filled with a bit of coldness. After becoming an emperor, his vision could be said to illuminate thousands of miles. He could see everything in the myriad realms. However, he couldn't see through the layers of void and the figure behind them. He could clearly feel that someone was indeed staring at him. That feeling was very strong. He didn't think that he had sensed wrongly. Before he became a martial emperor, he didn't feel it. It was probably because he wasn't strong enough. But the moment he became a martial emperor, he felt two pairs of eyes staring at him. One of them was very familiar to him. It was Ming Di. The other one was a complete stranger, but it gave him an even more terrifying feeling. In fact, he felt a chill run down his spine the moment he sensed it. This was also the reason why he had to wait until he had completely consolidated his cultivation before dealing with the inverse DD in one go. It was not impossible to kill an ID in the beginning. However, he would have to pay a high price. Not to mention Ming Di, the most terrifying thing was the existence behind him. He had never shown himself, but he was already so oppressed. In the process of fighting with NID, Yi Shiwen clearly felt that the existence wanted to attack several times. It was looking for the fleeting opportunity that Yi Shiwen exposed during the battle. However, Yi Shiwen himself was also a veteran. He instantly sensed it and didn't reveal any flaws. However, he didn't dare to use his full strength to deal with NID. He was multitasking. He reserved some power to deal with a possible surprise attack of Ming-Di or that mysterious existence. Yi Shiwen also felt that the probability of that mysterious existence attacking was higher than Ming-Di. He even felt that even Ming-Di was afraid of that mysterious existence. That was why he didn't attack in the end. Of course, no one knew how much power Ming-Di had left. Back then, he was seriously injured. If Yi Shiwen hadn't forced him to wake up early, he would probably still be in a deep sleep. This meant that he hadn't recovered yet. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but frown. Before becoming an emperor, there were many things that he didn't know. He didn't have so many worries. However, after becoming an emperor, he became aware of many things. Only then did he realize that this seemingly chaotic situation was just child's play. With the ability of an emperor, it was only a matter of time to sort out the problems here. However, the real problem was Ming-Di and that mysterious existence. No emperor was ordinary. Yi Shiwen had just become an emperor. He naturally understood how terrifying an emperor was. They were more than 100 times stronger than before. This was the most troublesome part. However, he was only a little worried. He quickly suppressed it. This was his territory. He wasn't afraid before becoming an emperor. Now that he was an emperor, why would he be afraid of them? The gaze that had been focused on Yi Shiwen and was ready to attack at any time finally retracted. The best opportunity was gone. Even with his power that was separated by millions of planes, it wasn't enough to defeat Yi Shiwen. Seeing that the opponent had retracted his gaze, Yi Shiwen also retracted his aura. He grabbed the Tai-E sword in front of him. The Tai-E sword was still struggling in his hand. It was the remnant spirit of NID that was causing trouble. Tai-E sword, the emperor's sword of the human race. It has been covered in dust all these years. Now let me return it to you. Yi Shiwen wiped his hand on the Tai-E sword. Instantly, a brilliant light erupted. Chapter 2953. The Tai-E sword shone brightly in Yi Shiwen's hand. The dazzling light could be seen by all the worlds in the universe. Cheerful clanging sounds could be heard. Go back to where you belong. Yi Shiwen released his hand. The Tai-E sword nodded slightly at Yi Shiwen, as if thanking him for saving it. Then it turned into a ball of golden light and flew towards the Heaven Realm's Ji family. The Tai-E sword belonged to a great emperor of the Ji family. It had been defeated by the Heaven clan. Now it had finally returned to its rightful owner. Yi Shiwen already had the Avicii sword. So, the Tai-E sword didn't mean anything to him anymore. Moreover, he respected that great emperor who had fought to the death for the human race. So, he didn't intend to take the Tai-E sword as a subordinate. However, Yi Shiwen was not so kind to the Myriad Worlds diagram. He erased its spirit on the spot and took the Myriad Worlds diagram as his subordinate. When the time came, he would be able to use it after refining it completely. The Myriad Worlds diagram contained the great path of an imperial emperor. If he could refine it completely, it would be of great benefit to him. Yi Shiwen stepped on the purple clouds and disappeared after he had subdued the Myriad Worlds diagram. He then returned to the Secret Alliance. The battle finally came to an end. The result of this battle was shocking. From the beginning to the end, Yi Shiwen didn't play his cards according to common sense. No one expected that from the beginning, NID disregarded his identity and personally came to kill Yi Shiwen. Later on, Yi Shiwen had a plan and was able to resist NID while crossing the tribulation. What surprised everyone even more was that not only did Yi Shiwen not fall into a disadvantageous position, but he even succeeded in proving his Tao and killed the rebellious emperor with a single strike. The whole process was full of twists and turns. It was completely unexpected. No one could guess what the result would be until the end. However, After experiencing the initial confusion and shock, the Allied forces suddenly began to cheer because Yi Shiwen had killed DNI. The last backbone of the celestial race had been broken, and there was no possibility for them to rise again. No matter how strong the Heaven clan was, could they compete with a powerful emperor? Not to mention, they weren't idlers either. With all of their forces mobilized, the celestial race's defeat was only a matter of time. This was the final battle, and at that time, the world would be safe for countless years. The allied forces of the various races began to stir. They were only waiting for Yi Shiwen's command. Under his command, they would attack the Heavenly Clan and exterminate them. On the contrary, the Heavenly Clan was completely terrified. Everyone was trembling. Originally, both sides could be regarded as evenly matched. However, after Yi Shiwen beheaded the NID, the balance of victory once again tilted in the direction of the allied forces of various clans. Heavens, could it be that the Heavens really don't care about our Tian clan anymore? This is the third time. Are we going to be sealed in exile for the third time? I can't accept this. We went through all kinds of hardships just to get out of the land of exile. Why are we being chased back now? Everyone was waiting for Yi Shiwen's reply. Yi Shiwen first healed Hua Minghan's injuries. Even though her injuries were quite serious, Yi Shiwen was no longer the same as before. With his skills, it was very easy for him to heal Hua Minghan's injuries. After healing Hua Minghan's injuries, Yi Shiwen didn't immediately appear to preside over the overall situation. Instead, he went to find the Demon Emperor. Previously, the Demon Emperor had used the last of his spirit to save them several times. He still had to repay this kindness. During this period of time, Yi Shiwen was saving Hua Minghan, while the Demon Emperor was teaching Yi Wudi and young Kuan-Peng. Both of them were considered the future backbone of the Heavenly Court. How far the Heavenly Court could develop in the future depended on the progress of their strength. Whether or not the Heavenly Court could be restored to its former glory depended on whether one of them could prove their Tao and become an emperor. Therefore, he had to carefully teach the two of them. He imparted some secret techniques and experiences that he didn't have time to impart before. Originally, his spirit wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long. However, during this period of time, Yi Shiwen continued to use his own skills to prolong his life. Now it was finally time to end. He had taught Yi Wudi and the others everything that he should have. Because of Yi Shiwen's skills, he even remembered more things and imparted things that he thought he didn't have time to impart. In the deepest part of the Hidden Alliance world, Yi Shiwen and the Demon Emperor were drinking tea on a round table on a mountain peak. At this time, no one could sit on the same level as them except for Ming Di. One was old and one was new. Two unprecedented emperors were sitting opposite each other. They didn't discuss Tao. At their level, there was no need to discuss Tao. Since ancient times, only a handful of people could reach this step. They both had an unprecedented understanding of Tao and had reached an extreme. Discussing Tao might be beneficial, but it was definitely not the same as when they were quasi-emperors. It was fine if their opinions were similar. However, if their opinions weren't similar, they would inevitably fight until their heads were broken. They might even have a fight to prove it was normal. Therefore, emperors rarely discussed Tao. Everyone's path was different. There was no need for them to prove their Tao. Their current strength was the best proof. There was no need to say much. They were just talking about some things they had seen. It was like two old friends meeting. Emperor Yi, you've only cultivated for 10,000 years, but you've already proven your status. It's really rare. The Demon Emperor took a sip of immortal tea and looked at Yi Shiwen with a smile. Since ancient times, there's no difference when you've reached this step. It doesn't matter how long or short it is. Advancing bravely and diligently in a short period of time is Tao. Fight and lose, persevere, and finally achieve Tao. Isn't that Tao? Yi Shiwen smiled slightly. He also took a sip of the immortal tea and felt refreshed. This immortal tea didn't belong to him. He had a lot of wealth on ordinary days. However, this kind of thing couldn't be obtained by plundering. It had to be accumulated for countless years, and nurtured by countless generations of wealth and honor. It was also a tribute from the Emperor clan, the Ji family, after he became emperor. Ordinary people could live for thousands of years with just a breath of the fragrance. Even gods could make great progress with just a sip. In this world, except for emperors, no one else could afford such wealth. The people of the world were stupid, and they liked to use the time they took to attain the Tao to judge the strength of an imperial monarch. Of course, it might also be because they had no other methods to judge an imperial monarch. Unless two people actually fought each other, otherwise, how could they judge the strength of an imperial monarch? However, for people like him who had truly reached this step, it didn't matter if he was a step earlier or a step later. He had finally reached this step. What did it matter if he was fast or slow? In the end, he had transcended. The demon emperor smiled and said, "The world is unpredictable. It's just like this. I'm about to die, but you, Emperor Yi, are different. One day in the future, you might be able to transcend fate." "Transcend fate? Please enlighten me, Demon Emperor." Yi Shiwen said, "Emperor Yi is insignificant. It's natural that you don't know these things." The Demon Emperor said indifferently. If someone else had said this, it would have caused an uproar. Insignificant? Wasn't it just saying that he was born in a bad family? However, at this point, there was no difference whether he was born in a small family or an inborn god. Speaking till here, the Demon Emperor sighed in his heart. He was different from Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary human. Finally, he had reached this step. It could be said that it was unprecedented. If Emperor Qin didn't stand in front of him, he would be the first human race since ancient times. And he was an inborn god of the demon race. He was born noble. He was born with spirit treasures. Just the starting point was already the end point that countless experts dreamed of. In short, he was a tall, rich, and handsome man. He was born with tens of billions of assets. And Yi Shiwen was a poor loser. He had started from nothing. He had reached this step and was on equal footing with the Demon Emperor. How could people not sigh with emotion? However, this feeling only lasted for a fleeting moment. At their level, it didn't matter if they had a humble starting point or were born into a noble family. There was no difference. Yi Shiwen smiled slightly. He didn't care. In fact, after Emperor Yi consolidated his cultivation, you should have realized that our cultivation base has just crossed another threshold. It may seem impressive, but in reality, we will still die. Since ancient times, there have been more than one or two emperors who have fallen. These are all lessons from the mistakes of the past. I believe Emperor Yi must have heard of this. The Demon Emperor continued. "Emperor Yi, you're right. Since ancient times, there has been a rumor. If the weak want to truly transcend, not fall into the trap of the heavenly Tao and rule the world, they must seize the good fortune and be truly free. May I ask what good fortune is?" Yi Shiwen asked. "I don't know what good fortune is. I only know that it is a legend that has existed since ancient times. All the emperors are fighting for this good fortune. At this step, no one doesn't want to seek eternal detachment. No one wants to be under others. If it weren't for the fact that I can't let go of the demon race, perhaps I would have gone to the good fortune world." The Demon Emperor said, "The good fortune world?" Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly burst with light. He had heard Lucifer mention that world before. However, Lucifer himself didn't know much about it. He only knew that the emperors had gone to that world. As for the specific location, he only knew a little bit from the words of the seniors. Yes, the good fortune world is a world beyond worlds. It is not in the heavens. There are rumors that it is a world created by the good fortune countless years ago. The true good fortune is hidden in it. If you want to truly transcend, you have to go to the good fortune world. Since ancient times, who knows how many heroes have gone to the good fortune world? The Demon Emperor sighed slightly. It seemed that he was sighing because he couldn't go to the good fortune world. Just one step to seek detachment. Who would be willing? Who would be willing? However, I have never been to the good fortune world. I don't know. Thank you for your guidance, Demon Emperor, Yi Shiwen said with a sincere expression. Chapter 2954. Good Fortune Realm. Good Fortune. Yi Shiwen pursed his lips. What was good fortune? There were some legends about good fortune in the heavens, but they had become common sayings. Good fortune made fools of people, but no one really knew what good fortune was. Even the lofty sovereign emperors like them were the same. No one knew. But all of this is still a long time away. Emperor Yi has such a strong foundation. There are 9 realms of Emperor. Emperor Yi has just become an emperor, but you're already at the great perfection of the first realm. It's really shocking, the Demon King said with a smile. 9 realms of Emperor. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. He felt that he had reached a bottleneck in his cultivation, but there was still a lot of room for improvement. But he didn't know how the 9 realms of Emperor were divided. Yes, the 9 realms of Emperor. My inheritance has this saying, but it seems that those who have truly entered the 9 realms are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. The Demon King said. There were naturally strong and weak emperors, but Yi Shiwen didn't know this was how it was judged. Emperor Yi has just reached the great perfection of the first realm. It can be said that you've saved at least hundreds of thousands of years. The Demon King said, there are 9 realms of Emperor, and each realm takes more time than the previous one. In this aspect, Emperor Yi doesn't have an advantage. If you want to catch up quickly, you can only swallow the treasures of heaven and earth. Perhaps you can shorten the time. I once swallowed one and directly advanced a realm. Hundreds of thousands of years for the current Yi Shiwen was indeed long and unimaginable. One must know that he had only cultivated for 10,000 years, only to be able to practice the first realm to the great perfection realm in 10 times the time. It was clear that the future realms could only rely on grinding. It wouldn't be so easy to advance by leaps and bounds. It would only be possible if there were enough opportunities. But in his heart, he was looking forward to the legendary good fortune realm. It was a miracle to be able to attract so many emperors. Emperor Yi, after I die, I'll trouble you to look after the heavenly court, the Demon King said to Yi Shiwen. If there was anything that the carefree Demon King couldn't let go of, it was definitely the heavenly court that he had founded. Don't worry, this is my duty. I won't let the heavenly court decline, even without the help of the Demon King. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. He had already truly reached this step and understood the thoughts of the monarchs from ancient times until now. Unless the Tian clan had the intention to rule the world, or if there was a great race war, there would be very few battles that would truly exterminate a race. It wasn't just because each sovereign lord's legacy had its own trump cards. Even a sovereign lord would have to pay a price to break through the legacy. It wasn't just because the heavens would punish them. Most importantly, there was no need for them to do so. After reaching this level, one's perception would be completely different. The next day, the Demon Emperor passed away silently. It was not like when he became an emperor, everyone under the heavens knew about him. Back then, he was an unrivaled and magnificent figure, yet now, he had vanished without a trace. Yi Shiwen was inexplicably touched in his heart. So what if he was a sovereign emperor? It was hard to predict things in this world without good fortune. After the Demon Emperor passed away, Yi Shiwen walked out of the Hidden Alliance for the first time. For a moment, everyone was watching, especially the Tian clan. They were trembling in fear. Yi Shiwen's emperor's aura had spread throughout the entire Tian clan. Among the monarchs from ancient times until now, he might not be the strongest. However, under such circumstances, no one could stop Yi Shiwen. The only one who could stop him was Ming-Di. During the time that Yi Shiwen was in seclusion, the Tian clan kept sending messengers to ask for Ming-Di's help. Thinking back to before, the Tian clan was still arrogant. They thought that as long as the other monarchs of the Tian clan crossed the seal, the situation of the entire Tian clan would be clear. At that time, even if Ming-Di was a veteran monarch, he could only bow his head in submission under such circumstances. At most, he could only confer territories and protect himself. It was impossible for him to do anything against the Tian clan, which had many monarchs. Unexpectedly, everything changed so quickly. In just a short period of time, the Tian clan, who originally had the upper hand, suddenly fell into a disadvantageous position. They were in imminent danger. With Yi Shiwen as the arrowhead, it was not difficult to destroy the Tian clan. However, Ming Di had always been non-committal about this matter. Obviously, he did not want to provoke Yi Shiwen, who was in the limelight for the Tian clan. At that time, they would fight to the death. The Tian clan would benefit the most. No one would be willing to do such a thing. Ming Di was a scheming person. Of course, he would not be happy. Of course, he was also confident that even if Yi Shiwen became an emperor, he would not dare to fight with another monarch to the peak. In the end, he was completely different from DNI, who had just become an emperor. In his opinion, it was normal for Yi Shiwen to be able to kill DNI. Yi Shiwen was already at the great perfection of the First Realm. DNI, who relied on the opportunity to become an emperor, was obviously at the bottom of the First Realm. It was normal for DNI to be killed. However, Ming Di was different. A monarch of the First Realm could not deal with him. He was not in his peak state yet. He did not want to take the risk. It would not be too late to kill Yi Shiwen when he recovered to his peak state. Moreover, there was still the mysterious mastermind, so he did not dare to act recklessly. As a result, he was unmoved by the Tian clan's continuous requests for help. Even if the Tian clan had promised him great benefits, he was not the slightest bit interested. Moreover, he knew that once the Tian clan released so many monarchs, it would be enough to crush any faction. He was not stupid to let so many powerful opponents in. Just Yi Shiwen alone was troublesome enough, not to mention the others. After Yi Shiwen came out, the first order he issued was not to attack, but to write a letter to the Tian clan's higher-ups, asking them to return to the other side of the seal. The heavens had the virtue of cherishing life. He was not willing to go to the extreme. As long as the Tian clan returned to the other side of the seal, he would not kill them. For a moment, the entire heavens and realms were in an uproar. The Tian clan did not expect Yi Shiwen to spare their lives. The heavens and realms were very shocked. In their opinion, this time, they were taking advantage of the absence of the monarchs of the Tian clan to kill the Tian clan. This way, they would be able to eliminate all future troubles. Therefore, when Yi Shiwen was at the Alliance headquarters, experts from all sides sent people to pay their respects. Many old antiques came out of seclusion and advised Yi Shiwen not to be soft-hearted and leave behind this future trouble. Yi Shiwen did not agree to this. So what if he killed all these people? It would only thoroughly enrage the Tian clan's monarchs on the other side of the seal. Moreover, when the Tian clan was defeated in the past, they were not completely wiped out. Was it really because they were not strong enough? More importantly, at their level, things were already different. He said that the heavens had the virtue of cherishing life. He was not looking for a cover for himself, but it was true. The higher one's cultivation was, the more one could sense the existence of the heavenly Tao. The more one could understand what the wrath of the heavenly Tao meant. The Tian clan was suddenly in an uproar. In the face of Yi Shiwen's final ultimatum, the Tian clan was divided into two factions. One faction was naturally frightened by Yi Shiwen. They tried to preserve their vitality and retreat first. In the future, they might have the opportunity to return to the myriad worlds, just like now. There had always been an endless number of emperors in the myriad heavens. However, who could rule the world for an eternity? Yi Shiwen was very strong. So, what if he could last for millions of years? It would be a real loss if he were to perish here. However, there was another faction that did not believe that Yi Shiwen had such powerful strength. It was not like countless years ago. There was only one monarch ruling the world. No matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, how could he be compared with countless years ago? He could not really drive them away. They had already established themselves in the myriad worlds, taking root and germinating. For a time, it was hard to determine the winner and loser. In the end, the monarch on the other side of the seal gave an order. Some of the Tian clan who voluntarily returned immediately returned to the other side of the seal. However, those who stayed behind with resources could also stay. Obviously, they wanted to have the best of both worlds. If they could block Yi Shiwen, the others could also return. If they could not, then they would not be completely annihilated. They could still leave a considerable amount of vitality. Knowing the arrangement of the Tian clan, Yi Shiwen did not say much. He just sneered and hesitated. The monarch of the Tian clan had been hiding in the primal chaos for too long. He had long lost his spirit. However, he did not care. The monarch was a different level of life. The remaining Tian clan members were like manises trying to stop a chariot. It was extremely ridiculous. Facing the Tian clan's hesitant approach, Yi Shiwen issued a strict order to kill the remaining Tian clan members. Not a single one would be spared. Although the heavens had the virtue of cherishing life, he had let these Tian clan members go. If the remaining people were still stubborn, then they would die. For a time, the allied forces of various races and masters gathered. Not only were there famous masters, but there were also many old antiques. They responded to Emperor Ye's call to eradicate the last Tian clan. Everyone realized that this would be the final battle. In this final battle, it was necessary to wipe out the Celestials. All of the merit points would be obtained in this final battle. To leave behind an incomparable legend, or not to participate in this great battle. Everyone had a choice in their hearts. Experts from all sides arrived with divine artifacts in hand. Even Tao artifacts were mobilized. Originally, they were worried that they would be ambushed by the Tian clan, so they didn't dare leave the monarch's inheritance. But now, this was the final battle. There was no point in staying behind. Besides, they would definitely win this battle, because they had Emperor Yi to lead them. A new era was about to begin. Chapter 29:55. This was the prelude to a new era. It was foreseeable that for a very long time in the future, the world would be under Emperor Ye's rule, who was a trusted aide, and who was secretly in opposition, would be involved in this battle. No one wanted to be seen as a two-faced rat, outwardly submissive, but inwardly unconvinced. If he was remembered by an imperial monarch, then the consequences were obvious. Everyone was scared silly. Even the ancient legacies that had never appeared in the world sent people. Their so-called never appeared in the world was only relative to the people of the world. In the eyes of an emperor, there were no secrets. Their seclusion was nothing more than a joke. If they didn't come out now, if they didn't exert themselves, the emperor would make life difficult for them in the future. Thus, no one dared to neglect this matter. They sent their strongest forces. As for their base, they didn't need to worry about it. If anyone dared to fight amongst themselves, if anyone dared to drag the army back, that would be politically incorrect. Then, they would be annihilated by Emperor Yi. From Emperor Ye's two orders, it was clear that Emperor Yi wasn't a bloodthirsty person, but he wasn't a soft-hearted person either. He wouldn't let those who deserved to die go. This was terrifying. But since ancient times, emperors had always been decisive in killing. This wasn't strange at all. However, with this order, everyone moved out. For a time, experts gathered. There were countless deity-level experts and over 100 peak quasi-emperors. There were also more than 10 Tao treasures. The true elites of the 10,000 realms were all gathered here. No one wanted to send people to their deaths. But if it was just to gain merit, then that was different. In any case, the Celestials had overestimated themselves. They were doomed. Did they really think that the methods they had left behind would work? Yi Shiwen wasn't even needed. If they turned out in full force, it would be enough to completely wipe them out. The army moved majestically, like a black cloud that blotted out the sky. They headed for the Celestial camp. Along the way, they encountered strongholds of the Celestials. In the blink of an eye, they encountered a bone that was difficult to chew. The supreme geniuses wielding Tao tools all moved to remove it. They didn't want to waste time. They had been waiting for this battle for too long. It was time to end it. In the universe, there wasn't a single power that dared say that none of their elders had been killed. Their hatred was as deep as the sea. As for the remaining experts of the Tian clan, they were truly enraged. What kind of situation was this? They had always been the ones to take the initiative to attack, but they never thought that the allied army would actually dare to directly attack. No one had expected that Yi Shiwen's appeal and influence would be so terrifying. They might have a chance of winning if it was just Yi Shiwen alone. However, the outcome would be almost one-sided if all the top experts of the myriad heavens and myriad worlds were included. Let's go all out. Even if we die, we have to let them know that the men of the Tian clan would rather die standing than live kneeling. I don't want to go back to that gray world. Even if I die, I want to bite off a piece of their flesh. Emperor Yi is truly awe-inspiring. Even if we can't beat him, we'll make him pay. In the myriad heavens and myriad worlds, many people were surprised that Yi Shiwen was able to summon so many experts with a single piece of paper. This proved that Yi Shiwen was currently ruling over the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. The battle was about to begin. It was extremely tragic. Blood splattered across the sky. Although the allied army of the various races had the upper hand, the Tian clan that remained were the elites of the elites. They were also the valiant warriors of the Tian clan. They even had the help of the Tian clan's Dao tools. In a moment of desperation, the allied army of the various races were actually unable to break through the Tian clan's camp. In the end, the Dao tools that the various experts brought couldn't help but join the battle. Each of them led aside and directly charged into the formation. However, the Tian clan was already prepared for this. They were already prepared to die. It was obvious that they had all begun to go crazy. They activated the foundation of the camp. For a time, the allied army of the various races suffered great losses. Just as the Tian clan was about to counterattack, Yi Shiwen finally made his move. He destroyed the foundation of the camp with a single strike and killed 10 peak Tian clan quasi-emperors who were in formation. Then, he struck the Tian clan's Dao tools one by one. Although the Dao tools of the Tian clan were extremely terrifying and it was difficult for external forces to injure them, it also depended on what kind of external force it was. Yi Shiwen's strength was clearly one of the best amongst the external forces. As an Emperor Lord, he already had the possibility of severely injuring a Dao tool. Since ancient times, so many damaged Dao tools had been destroyed in the hands of the Emperor Lord without exception. Only the Emperor Lord had such methods. These Dao tools were sent flying, but they did not continue to tangle with Yi Shiwen. It was obvious that they knew that it was useless to stay, so they directly flew through the seal and escaped. Yi Shiwen did not chase after them. There was no need for him to do so. He only continued to attack and kill the absolute experts of the Tian clan. Any one of the powerful quasi-emperors of the Tian clan could stir up a storm. They could be said to be extremely powerful, but in front of Yi Shiwen, they were all meaningless. They were directly slapped to death, and no one was an exception. Not everyone was like Yi Shiwen. To be able to escape from the hands of the Emperor Lord was a kind of honor in itself. From ancient times until now, countless people had recognized this kind of honor. Those who could do it were already outstanding talents that dazzled the ancient and modern times. This battle was extremely tragic, even with Yi Shiwen's participation. The experts of the Tian clan who had already decided to die erupted in the most intense battle, and all kinds of taboo methods were used. They no longer wanted to live, they just wanted to bite off a piece of meat from the allied forces of the various races and pay a sufficient price. Obviously, they had really done it. Although the allied forces of the various races had defeated the Tian clan's camp and killed all the experts of the Tian clan inside, they had also paid a sufficient price. The casualty rate was more than 30%. Although such a casualty rate was considered extremely good for the opponents they defeated, it still depended on the situation. Under the leadership of Yi Shiwen, Emperor Lord, they still suffered heavy losses. One could imagine how crazy the remnants of the Tian clan were. Even Yi Shiwen was frowning. When these people were not afraid of death, there was nothing to be afraid of. However, no matter what, in the end, the Tian clan's camp was eradicated. In addition, the truly powerful experts had already been eradicated by Yi Shiwen, so not many of the true quasi-emperor experts of the allied forces of the various races had fallen. Most of them were cannon fodder, and the casualties were heavy. After the Tian clan's camp was eradicated, the experts of the various races began to disperse according to the formation of the legions. They began to hunt down the remaining experts of the Tian clan throughout the 10,000 worlds. This time, after learning from the previous treatment, the allied forces of the various races did not plan to give the Tian clan another chance to recover. In addition, Under Yi Shiwen's leadership, the conditions were unprecedentedly good. If they could not solve this problem, then it would naturally be impossible to truly eradicate the threat of the Tian clan in the future. This time, it was a wake-up call for the allied forces of the various races. They had never paid attention to this problem before, but in the end, it had developed into such a situation. This time, it was fortunate that Yi Shiwen had appeared out of nowhere. Otherwise, wouldn't they all have to kneel down? This time, Yi Shiwen had saved the day. Next time, would they still be able to count on such an expert to appear? In order to prevent such a thing, the only way was to eliminate it from the root. Therefore, on this matter, the allied forces of the various races worked together and began to madly hunt down the remnants of the Tian clan. Yi Shiwen didn't stop them. After all, there was no need to do so. Since they had decided to stay, then they would be courting death. Even if they died, they would die a worthy death. Yi Shiwen did not participate in the rest of the pursuit. Firstly, there was no need. There were no strong experts among the remaining Tian clan survivors. It was enough to leave it to the allied forces of the various races. Furthermore, he had an even more urgent matter to do, which was to consolidate the seal left behind by the previous emperors. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and when he reappeared, he was already in the sealed grounds. The bustling scene of the Tian clan in the past had already disappeared without a trace. The Tian clan that wanted to stay had already gone to the Tian clan's camp, and the rest had already fled to the other side of the seal. Thus, the entire sealed grounds had returned to a deathly silence. Yi Shiwen sighed slightly. Many years ago, when he first came to the sealed grounds, who would have thought that he would have the power he had today? The world was as usual, and that was all there was to it. Yi Shiwen sat down cross-legged. Around him, auspicious clouds bloomed, automatically forming a small world. Emperor Yi, your methods are indeed amazing, but flowers will not bloom for 100 days, and people will not be happy for 1,000 days. Every dog has its day. Sooner or later, the Tian clan will rule the world. A cold snort came from the other side of the seal. It was the emperor of the Tian clan. An incomparably powerful aura swept out. If it was in the past, Yi Shiwen would have felt a huge pressure, but now it was just a breeze. No matter how powerful an emperor was, he could not do anything to Yi Shiwen from the seal. There will be a day when the Tian clan will rule the world. Have you not thought about why you failed? Destiny is with me, not with you, Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile. Destiny will change sooner or later. Do you still think that you can control destiny forever? Another emperor of the Tian clan said coldly. He had planned for countless years, but in the end, he had failed at the last moment. This was a huge blow to him. It is said that the will of the heavens is the will of the people, and the will of the heavens is the will of the people. You want to be above the heavens and make all living beings panic. Everyone hates you as if you were an enemy. Do you think that under such circumstances, destiny will still be with you? Don't you understand such a simple truth? It seems that you have been an emperor for too long and have blinded your eyes. Do you really think that you are omnipotent? Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. The will of the heavens is like a blade. One blade will take your life. You don't need to say any more nonsense. Continue to live there. Don't even think about coming out for billions of years. As Yi Shiwen said this, he formed a seal in his hand and instantly hit the ancient seal that was already full of cracks. Chapter 2956. Yi Shiwen repaired the seal and sat there for 1,000 years. Time flew by, and no one dared to disturb Yi Shiwen. However, the encirclement of the Tian clan in the myriad heavens realm was still ongoing. Although the majority of the Tian clan-s had been exterminated, there were still some leftovers that had escaped. These were all things that needed to be encircled and annihilated. With this painful lesson, this time, the various powers did not want to leave any leftovers behind. The talent of the Tian clan was too terrifying. Even if it was just an ordinary Tian clan, in reality, they had talent and strength that was not inferior to the elites of the various races. This was a bug-like race filled with geniuses. If not for this, it would have been impossible for them to fight against the entire universe by themselves. Even if a seed was left behind, it would be possible for it to form a huge force after hundreds of millions of years. This time they had to be exterminated. Other than the remnants of the Tian clan, there were also some races with the bloodline of the Tian clan, as well as the forces that had sided with the Tian clan during the war. They were all encircled and annihilated. Towards such betrayal, the allied forces of the various races hated it very much. This was because these people had acted as the claws of the Tian clan, causing them to suffer heavy losses. Now it was time to pay the price. After 1,000 years of encirclement and annihilation, although it was impossible for the remaining forces of the Tian clan to be completely exterminated, in reality, they had already been strangled to death. In these 1,000 years, it could be said that they had truly entered an era of competition. Without the threat of the Tian clan, the Golden Era had truly erupted. Other than the young supreme beings who had grown up in the early years, there were also some who had grown up in recent years. They were all peak quasi-emperors and ruled over a region. As the greatest enemy of the Tian clan was annihilated, all sides began to stir and compete for the empty space left behind by the Tian clan. Among them, the most powerful one was naturally the Secret Alliance. Because of Yi Shiwen's existence, the entire Secret Alliance had entered a period of rapid development. In a short span of 1,000 years, it had already developed into a colossus, attracting countless experts to come and listen to their orders. Originally, no matter what, even if the Secret Alliance was given a few million years, it would still be impossible for it to develop to such an extent. It was actually able to be compared to the inheritance of the emperor. All of this was, of course, because of Yi Shiwen. They had been patient with him, which allowed the Hidden Alliance to develop so quickly. Since ancient times, only the Hidden Alliance and the Martial Sect had been able to develop at such a speed. The two major sects had one emperor in the world and had no other competitors. Naturally, no one dared to not give them face. Even if Yi Shiwen did not say anything, they would still have been patient on their own. Fortunately, although the Secret Alliance had just started, Yi Mo was not a nouveau riche. He had already followed an emperor. Under his control, although the Secret Alliance was developing rapidly, he still controlled it well. He would get what he should get, and he would not touch what he should not get. Even if he did not make the heavens angry, it was still much better than the martial sect back then. The situation in the universe had undergone tremendous changes over the past 1,000 years. Yi Shiwen, who was sitting cross-legged in front of the seal, remained motionless. No matter how the wind blew or how the sun shone on him, he remained motionless. I see. After an unknown period of time, the first voice rang out, like the first word that broke through the chaos. Yi Shiwen slowly opened his eyes. Compared to 1,000 years ago, he had made great progress, mainly in the aspect of array seals. In the past 1,000 years, he mainly repaired this seal, but in the process, he was also constantly understanding these seal techniques. This seal had been arranged by the joint efforts of several Emperor Lords. So, it naturally contained great mysteries. It had taken him hundreds of years just to comprehend these things. Yi Shiwen continued to repair the seal in the remaining time. His speed was getting faster and faster. After repairing the seal, Yi Shiwen arranged another array outside, shrouding the sealed land in it. Finally, it was completely banished into the endless void. Other than Yi Shiwen, no one else knew where the sealed grounds was. The existence of this sealed grounds itself was a great threat. Unless the Tian clan was exterminated, it would not be possible. The news of Yi Shiwen's return from the sealed land had shaken the entire myriad heavens. Although everyone was used to the fact that there was an emperor above their heads, Yi Shiwen had been repairing the seal for thousands of years. He had never intervened in the affairs of the myriad heavens. In fact, many people had even forgotten about this matter. Now that Yi Shiwen had returned, many people were shocked. The first thing Yi Shiwen did when he returned was to worship the heavens. Fortunately, the Secret Alliance was prepared in this aspect. They found many precious divine materials and laid an altar. Countless disciples of the Secret Alliance attended together, in addition to many experts from various clans and sections. This was an extremely rare opportunity. After all, even though there had been many imperial monarchs since the ancient times until now, when they were evenly distributed throughout the boundless annals of time, there were pitifully few of them. Besides an extremely small number of seniors, everyone else had only heard of imperial monarchs offering sacrifices to the heavens in legends. Now that they were actually able to witness it, how could they not be excited? The sacrificial ceremony was a way for emperors to announce to the heavens, and it was also very beneficial for the people watching. At this moment, the heavens would not be stingy with their rewards. Everyone's cultivation improved, and many people directly broke through the realm barrier that they had not broken through for many years. Yi Shiwen had officially joined the Hidden Alliance after he had presided over the sacrificial ceremony. He had accepted the worship of all parties. This should have been done thousands of years ago. However, it had been delayed because he had to repair the seal. Now everything had been completed. Experts from all sides came to pay their respects. This was the only emperor apart from Emperor Qin in the recent ancient times. This was the respect for the emperor. No matter who the expert was, they must be respectful when facing such an emperor. In particular, Yi Shiwen had just led them to defeat the heavenly race. It could be said that his achievements were so great that it shook the heavens, and his prestige was like the sun in the sky. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen had joined the secret alliance and ruled the world. It had already been 2,000 years. As time passed, the development of the secret alliance had also stopped. It was not that they did not have the ability to continue expanding, but there was no need to. Compared to expanding the scale, consolidating themselves was more important. Moreover, Yi Shiwen also understood the principle of overflowing when the moon is full, and the moon is full when it is empty. In the history, when many emperors established the inheritance of emperors, they did not overdo it and occupy the living space of others. And the ones who did this, like the heavenly race, were exiled 3 times and provoked public anger. When Yi Shiwen entered the 3rd millennium after becoming an emperor, the Secret Alliance also officially changed its name and established the Divine Court. It was officially separated from the Hidden Valley in the past and truly entered the era of Yi Shiwen. And the heavens and the realms finally entered the era of the Divine Court's rule. In these thousands of years, in addition to developing itself, the Divine Court also actively participated in the post-war reconstruction of the heavens and the realms, and was responsible for mediating the conflicts between the major forces to prevent the outbreak of war again. With Yi Shiwen in charge, in addition to the Divine Court's mediation, basically adhered to the principle of fairness. So the major forces were sincerely convinced. And in these 3,000 years, Yi Shiwen did not enter the state of closed-door training like everyone imagined. Instead, he lived with his family in the depths of the Divine Court. Except for patrolling the world every 2 years, he never went out. And in the 3rd millennium, Yi Shiwen finally set off for the Kurfürst Road. Emperor Yi set off, and the sky and the earth shone brightly, and the purple aura came from the east for 30,000 miles. Although he did not bring anyone with him, it still shocked the heavens and the realms. Many people were shocked. What was Yi Shiwen trying to do? The Kurfürst Road! It's the Kurfürst Road! Many people exclaimed. The Kurfürst Road had reappeared. This should not have happened. The last opportunity to become an emperor on the Kurfürst Road was also seized by the inverse emperor. Since then, the Kurfürst Road had completely disappeared from the world, and no one could find the whereabouts of the Kurfürst Road. But with Yi Shiwen's monstrous magic power, the Kurfürst Road reappeared in front of everyone as if the clouds were dispelled and the sun was seen. Is Emperor Yi trying to attack the Kurfürst Road? Many people faintly thought of this. Many years ago, the Qin Emperor seemed to have wanted to do this, but a shocking battle broke out with a terrible existence. In the end, the Qin Emperor, who had never lost a battle in his life, failed to attack the Kurfürst Road in the end, which added a layer of mystery to the Kurfürst Road. Was Emperor Yi trying to attack the Kurfürst Road again? Could the Kurfürst Road that had once stopped the Qin Emperor also stop Emperor Ye's unhindered domination? No one knew why Yi Shiwen wanted to erase the Kurfürst Road. Although there were rumors from various forces that the Kurfürst Road was extraordinary and that there was a great mystery hidden in it, no one could understand it after so many years. Yi Shiwen stood outside the Kurfürst Road and stood still. Looking from afar, it was like an ancient divine mountain standing between heaven and earth. Still not showing yourself? Yi Shiwen's words had thoroughly shocked all the experts of the 10,000 worlds who were paying attention to this place. There was actually someone here? And they didn't know it at all? Just who in the world dared to go against an emperor monarch? Boom! In the Kurfürst Road, a blazing lightning tore through the sky, directly shuttling out of the Kurfürst Road, and a figure landed in the field. As soon as he appeared, the world seemed to fall into a kind of silence, suppressed by a terrible coercion. Emperor. This is the coercion of an emperor. Many people were almost scared silly. Could it be that there was another emperor hidden among them? Many people's rationality told themselves that it was impossible, but the facts in front of them had to admit that it was indeed the coercion of an emperor. Such a feeling could not be wrong. Compared to Yi Shiwen, although the form was different, it was exactly the same in essence. No one could see clearly who that figure was. They could only see that it was a man in a luxurious robe, and in those endless chaotic eyes, there was unimaginable disdain. Chapter 29:57. Many people were scared silly. Where did this guy come from? Everyone knew that Yi Shiwen had become an emperor under the watchful eyes of everyone. Who was this person? He wasn't at a disadvantage under Emperor Ye's pressure, and even seemed to be resisting. Many people thought of the incident that had caused Emperor Qin to return in defeat. Could this be the person who had caused Emperor Qin to return in defeat? If this was the case, then it would become a serious problem for Yi Shiwen to rule the world. In the current era of an emperor, he should have been able to sweep across the world. But with such a person here, Yi Shiwen's ruling power would be greatly reduced. Not to mention, there was also Ming Di, who was watching covetously. It seemed like the world hadn't truly reached peace yet. There was still someone capable of posing a fatal threat to Emperor Ye's rule. This was going to be another emperor-level battle. Yi Shiwen had only become emperor for 3,000 years. Was he going to have 2 emperor-level battles in a row? It seemed like he was destined not to be a peaceful emperor. He would have to fight for his entire life like Emperor Qin. This was a terrifying expert who could cause Emperor Qin to return in defeat. How could such a person not make everyone nervous? If Emperor Yi was defeated, then the world would once again descend into chaos. This mysterious monarch expert, as well as Emperor Hades, who was eyeing them covetously, were no pushovers. Although Yi Shiwen was strong, he was still in a much better position than them. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines when they thought of the most terrifying consequences. Yi Shiwen hadn't been an emperor for a long time, so he hadn't truly established his invincible prestige. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so worried. In fact, they wouldn't even need to think about it. "I'm here," the figure said coldly. His voice was calm, but there was a hint of arrogance in it. Unimaginable arrogance. "You want to destroy the Kurfürst Road?" the figure asked Yi Shiwen, seeming to be disdainful. He naturally had some self-control. Since ancient times, there had been many who felt that there was something wrong with the Kurfürst Road. But in the end, not a single one had been able to truly destroy it. Emperor Qin was one of the first to act. In the end, he didn't succeed and returned in defeat. Given Emperor Qin's prestige and strength back then, it could be said to be shocking. Countless laws appeared around him, making him seem like the most powerful imperial emperor in the world. That's right, the Kurfürst Road. What a joke! Who is qualified to choose the Kurfürst Road? Yi Shiwen opened his mouth, his voice cold and ruthless. His eyes, which were as deep as the Milky Way, were incomparably blazing. "I am qualified," the figure said slowly. "You?" Yi Shiwen sneered. "I have a question that I'm curious about. What happened to those who became emperors by relying on the Kurfürst Road since ancient times? Except for the inverse emperor who was killed by me, there was another one who was killed during the reign of Emperor Qin. What about the rest? Don't you think you're asking too much?" Do you really think that you're invincible now that you've become a martial emperor? The figure slowly said, the more you know, the faster you die. Although I am not invincible, but it is enough to suppress you. Yi Shiwen said coldly, in this life, I will rule the world. Just go and be an invincible sovereign emperor. Why are you challenging me? That figure's voice was cold, and he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. If you want to meddle too much, you must pay the price. Some people can't be unjust. This world is too chaotic. You have meddled in the order of the world for so many years, it's time to end it. Yi Shiwen said slowly, you even dare to meddle in the selection of emperors. I think you are the ones who are really arrogant. It seems that it doesn't make sense. Even Emperor Qin is not my opponent, let alone you. The voice said coldly, you, who have just become an emperor, are not qualified to be arrogant in front of me. Emperor Qin is not your opponent? You really know how to flatter yourself. Yi Shiwen said slowly, you have been hiding in the battle back then and didn't come out. I don't know, after being seriously injured, how much power do you have left now? It's enough to kill you, the figure said, unmoved. It is indeed an extremely brilliant method. Yi Shiwen suddenly said, with your divine thoughts controlling the emperor's body, you can burst out a combat power not weaker than the emperor level. It is indeed amazing. This emperor's body should be your main means of interfering in this world. Previously, when I was crossing the tribulation, it was also you who spied on me. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but be shocked instantly. Someone dared to spy on Yi Shiwen crossing the tribulation. Dared to spy on an emperor crossing the tribulation. Wasn't that courting death? Many people couldn't help but be completely shocked when they thought of this. In particular, the meaning behind Yi Shiwen's words was that the person in front of them turned out to be the emperor's body. There was indeed such a method to control the emperor's body with divine thoughts. Emperor and I had once controlled the emperor's body, but in terms of combat power, it was only slightly stronger than ordinary Taoist tools. It was impossible to exert the combat power of the emperor's body again. Not to mention, according to Yi Shiwen's words, this person didn't belong to this world at all. He actually came from a distant place with divine thoughts to control the affairs in the myriad world. This could be said to be a secret, a truly shocking secret. Who the hell was this person? You can actually see it. It seems that you really have some ability to become the emperor after Emperor Qin. However, the more capable people are, the faster they die. Don't you understand this truth? The figure said coldly, if you had obediently been an emperor and ruled the world, you would have had your glory and your legend. But now, you actually dare to provoke me. You are really courting death. It's really ridiculous. Who is the reckless one? Let's just fight. Although I don't know where you got the emperor's body. Today I will cut off your claws that reached here. Yi Shiwen sneered and instantly attacked. Around his body, the spiritual power instantly surged. His spiritual power was actually engraved with Ask the Way. These were the direct manifestations of the law of the Great Way. They communicated with heaven and earth and represented the will of heaven and earth with infinite power. 6 paths, reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch. In an instant, the galaxy collapsed and heaven and earth wailed as if the world was about to be destroyed. His expression was very indifferent. Once this punch was launched, it was almost as if he wanted to rebuild the 6 paths of reincarnation between heaven and earth. In terms of strength, compared to thousands of years ago, it was not known how much more tyrannical it was. It made people tremble with fear. Yi Shiwen's punch directly blasted through the universe and dispersed the chaotic mist in front of this figure, revealing the face of a middle-aged man. That handsome face was full of murderous intent. At that critical moment, he also attacked. He blasted out a punch, and the world suddenly changed. He blasted towards Yi Shiwen's figure. Boom! Boom! This blow shook the world, and countless galaxies were destroyed. It was not inferior to the battle between Yi Shiwen and Inverse Emperor. In fact, it was much more terrifying. At that time, when Yi Shiwen destroyed Inverse Emperor, his strength was not comparable to now. In addition, Inverse Emperor's strength was only at the bottom of the first realm among the 9 realms of Emperor. The person in front of him was completely different. Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate in the slightest as he didn't manage to kill his opponent with a single blow. He once again attacked in a callous manner. That terrifying power made the sun, the moon, and the stars reverse, and the universe collapse. Boom! It was another shocking blow. Boom! 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 The collision between the two occurred thousands of times in an instant. The waves of energy that spread out made the experts from all over the universe tremble with fear. If it were them, they would not even be able to resist a punch and would die. That's all. Although the Emperor's body is powerful, don't forget that I am also an Emperor. Your greatest advantage does not exist in front of me. Yi Shiwen jumped up, and he directly put on the time robe. His combat power instantly soared. Boom! Yi Shiwen and the middle-aged man's fists collided again. Unlike before, they were almost equal. This time, Yi Shiwen directly broke the opponent's finger bones. Golden blood splashed out, and bone fragments flew. The middle-aged man groaned and retreated again and again. His entire palm had been blown away by Yi Shiwen's attack. Yi Shiwen's physical body was already extremely powerful. With the addition of the time robe, his power suddenly jumped a lot. It instantly soared to an unimaginable level. The time robe is not a disgrace in your hands, the middle-aged man said coldly. That's natural. Today is the day you die, Yi Shiwen said coldly. He could feel that the middle-aged man in front of him should have been injured, and he had not recovered yet. That battle should be with the Qin Emperor. Apart from the Qin Emperor, there shouldn't be anyone else. The middle-aged man finally realized how difficult it was to deal with this person who had just become an emperor in front of him. The last battle, I will send you to heaven, Yi Shiwen roared and directly rushed forward. He took advantage of the fact that the middle-aged man had not recovered to directly rush forward. Boom! 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 The fierce battle began again. The middle-aged man was forced to kill by Yi Shiwen. He constantly resisted, but his injuries continued to worsen. He was getting more and more disadvantaged. He was beaten by Yi Shiwen again and again, and could only barely defend. But soon, this balance was broken. Yi Shiwen's punch collapsed his defense, and the momentum did not decrease and blasted into his chest. Boom! This blow directly pierced a big hole in his chest. For an Emperor level expert, such an injury was not considered fatal. However, he was only using a wisp of spirit to control the Emperor's body. Yi Shiwen instantly released the Nanming Leaf Fire. For a moment, that wisp of spirit screamed under the burning of the Nanming Leaf Fire, but it could not escape. It was completely imprisoned. Ah! With a series of screams, this wisp of spirit was burned to ashes by Yi Shiwen alive. Chapter 2958. As the middle-aged man was annihilated, the Kurfürst Road could not stop Yi Shiwen's conquest. Soon, the ancient formation that had been set up many years ago collapsed, and the 33 heavens inside were also dispersed. They would not be forcibly fused together. Yi Shiwen retrieved his biological parents from it, captured the entire world with great power, and sent it to the depths of the divine court. If Yi Shiwen still had any weaknesses now, it would be his relatives and friends. Whether it was for public or private reasons, he would not allow his relatives to wander outside. The outside world was still immersed in the shock of Yi Shiwen's conquest of the Kurfürst Road. The Kurfürst Road had existed since ancient times. Yi Shiwen was not the first emperor to conquer the Kurfürst Road, but he was the only one to succeed since ancient times. This was completely different. In the eyes of many people, this proved that Yi Shiwen would never be willing to be a peaceful emperor, and he would not turn a blind eye to the existences lurking in the darkness everywhere. Although the emperor monarchs were supreme existences in the world, there were some extremely powerful existences that could threaten the emperor monarchs. Since ancient times, such things had happened before. Some extremely powerful existences lurked in the heavens and realms. Once they made a move, they could directly challenge the emperor. It was not that ordinary people could deal with them. just like the powerful existence in this Kurfürst road. If the NID was present, he might not be able to conquer it. At that time, there would be a situation where two heroes existed side by side in the universe. It would also be a great challenge for the prestige of the emperor. Therefore, there were also some emperor who chose to turn a blind eye and only defend their own territory. This was the so-called peaceful emperor. However, Yi Shiwen's actions clearly indicated that he wouldn't be content to be a peaceful son of heaven. He must be a powerful emperor. This would be a powerful suppression for those ambitious people. And it would be a mixed blessing for those who wholeheartedly wanted to live a peaceful life. The more powerful the emperor was, the more powerful the safety of the heavens would be. However, if Yi Shiwen was not willing to be a peaceful emperor, he was bound to conquer everywhere. At that time, it would inevitably cause turmoil in all directions. If Yi Shiwen wanted to deploy troops, how could they not be deployed? However, no matter what they thought, this matter was not up to them. However, those old antiques were shocked by Yi Shiwen's previous words. Someone had used the sovereign's body to stir up the matters of the heavens. This had subverted their understanding. Since he was not within the myriad worlds, how could he truly affect the myriad worlds? He could still use his arch-body to maintain the combat power of a sovereign emperor. Could it be that the legends about the Kurfürst road in the ancient legends were true? That person is the one who chose the emperor? Was that person the one who provided the opportunity to become a martial emperor? If that was the case, what was he trying to do? Obviously, such an existence would not be doing good things for no reason. There must be a special reason for it. However, the reason behind this should not be small. Otherwise, the previous generations of imperial emperors wouldn't have found it troublesome and fearful. However, such a problem was not something they could solve or think about because they had not reached that level. Only Yi Shiwen, as the imperial emperor, could solve this problem. As Yi Shiwen trampled on the Kurfürst road, his prestige also rose to another level, and he truly established his invincible majesty. Even among the imperial emperors, he was also a strong one, not a weak one. In the world, now, among all the enemies on the surface, only the netherworld kingdom's Ming-Di could be a match for Yi Shiwen. Perhaps others might choose to temporarily avoid the sharp edge. Everyone's character was different, and not everyone sought absolute control. However, Yi Shiwen seemed to be unwilling to give in and compromise. All those who stood in his way would be trampled by him. Not to mention that Ming-Di had made things difficult for Yi Shiwen time and time again, almost causing him to fall short of success at the final step. With such a huge enmity, with Yi Shiwen's character of seeking revenge for the smallest grievance, it was absolutely impossible for him to let it go. In the end, the two would have a battle. It was just a matter of when and where. This battle was ultimately unavoidable. This was the consensus of everyone. Under such circumstances, the era of divine court's domination of the world had truly arrived. Under the situation where Ming-Di did not come out to confront Yi Shiwen, he was the only supreme ruler in the world, and his words were final. Since ancient times, among the many imperial emperors in the world, there were only a few who had such supreme power. In fact, they could be counted on one's fingers. This was because many emperors throughout the ages had multiple imperial emperors, and it was impossible for them to be invincible and truly invincible in the world. Everyone was in awe of the illustrious reputation of divine court, and everyone was in awe of it. In the next 10,000 years, Yi Shiwen became more and more reclusive, and even the number of times he went out had greatly decreased. Most of the time, he was in the depths of divine court's Emperor Mountain, and he would occasionally come out to preach to the people of divine court. Yi Shiwen was the only two surviving imperial emperors, and his preaching was naturally extremely important to the people of divine court. It was unknown how many people had broken through because of it. Moreover, in these years, divine court continued to expand and develop. It could be said that it had become the current #1 imperial emperor's inheritance in the world. In terms of the number of talents, it had firmly surpassed the other imperial emperor's inheritances. This was also the rule of the imperial emperor's inheritance. As long as the imperial emperor was on the throne, the imperial emperor's inheritance would inevitably be at its most glorious and prosperous time. Even though divine court had just been established for less than 10,000 years, it was still a junior among the many imperial emperors' inheritances. However, because of Yi Shiwen's existence, heroes from all over the world came to seek refuge, and more geniuses joined divine court. These geniuses grew up in these 10,000 years and became the powerful backing and strength of divine court. They seized more resources and developed better. Therefore, more talents were attracted to come, and it formed a benign snowball of development. In this rolling development, the golden era of the heavens and the world became more and more brilliant. Everyone had originally thought that Yi Shiwen's generation would be a golden era because too many peerless Heaven's Pride experts had emerged in this era. Only a handful of people had been as dazzling and brilliant as this era since ancient times. In fact, they could count them on one's fingers. But then they discovered that they were wrong. Although Yi Shiwen's generation was incomparably brilliant, in fact, it was just the beginning of this glorious era. In these 10,000 years, a large number of young geniuses emerged, and each of them was a peerless genius. It could be said that each one was more powerful than the previous one, and they were not inferior to Yi Wudi and the others. All kinds of powerful bloodlines emerged one after another. Many people thought that they had gone extinct in this world, and it was absolutely impossible for them to appear again. However, they appeared in front of everyone again. Some races that were thought to be extinct, such as the Titan and other powerful races that could compete with the dragon race in ancient times, also had their bloodlines reawakened and walked around the world, regaining their prestige. In addition to these powerful bloodlines, there were also many hidden sects that had not appeared for countless years, but now all had their successors. Moreover, under everyone's eyes, they made rapid progress in a short period of time. There were more than one or two who broke through to the quasi-emperor realm. Compared to Yi Shiwen's speed of progress, they were not the slightest bit slower and even faster. In addition, the most unexpected thing was that even the ancient innate gods had awakened. In the distant past, that group of ancient gods used to rule the heavens and the world. They were the first group of gods in the beginning of the world, and they were born to follow the rules. None of them was born with their own priesthood and godhood, and they were in charge of the affairs of the world. They were different from the demon emperor and other innate gods that were born later. Innate gods like the demon emperor were extremely powerful when they were born, but they didn't have a priesthood and were just ordinary gods. In terms of power, the ancient gods were even more powerful. It could even be said that those ancient gods were in charge of a part of the functions on behalf of the immature world. Later, these ancient gods also gradually fell in the successive wars. After that, the heavenly race and the three races competed for hegemony and dominated the world. Regarding that group of ancient gods, almost everyone only knew that they existed in legends. Unexpectedly, there were also ancient gods that had been sleeping for countless years and re-emerged and entered the golden era to compete for the world. Moreover, there was more than one. In such a great era where countless geniuses and evildoers gathered, it simply blinded everyone's eyes. Since ancient times, there had not been so many geniuses and evildoers gathered together. Moreover, after these people were born, their cultivation often progressed very quickly, and they broke the cultivation records that everyone knew. There were even some people who asserted that if Yi Shiwen was born in this era, perhaps his amazing and heaven-defying cultivation record would be nothing. Of course, this was just a wild guess, because there was no such thing as if in this world. Moreover, those who could become emperors in any era were enough to suppress the heroes and dazzle the ages. And in the process, a saying gradually began to spread among the people. Because the confinement period was about to end, the shackles of the rules had been loosened, and this was the fundamental reason why countless geniuses could advance by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time. Without the suppression of the heavenly way, cultivation also became easier, and the golden era became more and more brilliant. And there was also an even more shocking news that the confinement period was about to end, And the golden era that opened at the end of the confinement period only had one purpose, and that was to become the real emperor. It was not like the semi-finished product of the Kurfürst Road, but the real emperor. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.